everyone. Welcome to Lives Worth Telling. I'm your host, Jodes, and my podcast is about digging deep into people's stories and providing them with a platform to share their life and their experiences with my listeners. One of the key reasons in creating this podcast is so their families and friends can have a record of their life, their stories, and their voice forever. One of my favourite things is hearing about people's stories, their triumphs, their hardships, but most of all, I love hearing about their resilience. I really hope you enjoy listening to my guests share their lives with you. I want you to have a few laughs and allow yourself to be immersed in their stories. Welcome to episode 1 of season 3 of Lives Worth Telling. I honestly can't believe we're in season 3 now, and I have some fantastic guests lined up for you. We have picked up some new listeners in California, Adelaide, Vietnam, and Nelson Bay in New South Wales. We've had some really exciting news recently. Hayley from episode 8 had her baby Miller. Congratulations to her and her family. We are very much looking forward to recording part 2 and exploring what life is like as a new mum. Well, today we meet the very funny and entertaining Karl. Karl grew up in Bayside, Melbourne, and shares his stories of resilience and insight with us. Karl has been involved in his family's business that has been in operation since 1913. His role in operating the business has been a crucial part of its long-running success. He also shares with us a significant loss in his family that affected everyone and changed the trajectory of his life. So settle in for lots of laughs and some hilarious stories and be captivated by his charisma. Enjoy. Okay, today, oh my gosh. So this person, I reckon I've badgered this person for 2 whole seasons and now we're in season 3 and he said yes. So I'm going to say welcome to you, Karl. We're here.
We are.
I can't believe you said yes.
We are, Jodes. I could stroke my ego and say that you needed to boost your ratings.
Let's go with that, right?
But
let's go with that.
No, that's all right. Look,
Right.
there's a time and a place for everything.
Absolutely.
What better way to spend a Saturday than
no, absolutely.
Come up here. I got past passport control, so that's all right. So,
borders are strict.
Yeah. It wasn't the iron of steel anymore, so it was all right.
That's true. Thank God those days are over.
Yeah. God, yeah.
All right, we're going to start off with background and childhood. So tell me about your family, your parents, your siblings, and go.
Okay. All right. Well, where did it all start? So it would have been probably, I think it was about the 19th of February, 1977. Okay. So I think Mum and Dad went to the movies that night.
We're going right back, yeah.
Maybe. So I went to the movies with Dad and came home with Mum. And then on the 17th of December, the same year,
bang.
Ta-da!
Here he is.
Happy anniversary.
Spot on.
So I'm a 77 model. So, yeah.
77 model.
Yeah.
So
they built them to last back then, Joe. They're not this, Chinese electric shit you get these days. But,
yes.
Yeah, no. So I grew up, I was born in Sandringham Hospital.
Okay.
Actually, fun fact.
So always near the beach?
Yeah, Bayside. Yeah, Bayside. Yeah. So my family, in terms of Dad's side, was always Bayside.
Okay.
So Dad grew up in Brighton, Malvern, that sort of area. Yeah. Sort of pinballed around a little bit, but then they sort of Dad had his sort of like his teen years in Brighton.
Okay.
Yeah, in North Road.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if anyone knows Melbourne, that was sort of like a leafy Bayside suburbs.
Very
and that.
nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that's where he sort of originated from.
Yeah.
Those sort of areas, those Bayside areas. And so Cheltenham, which is where obviously I grew up,
yes,
was like the, I suppose the Clyde of Melbourne. Like, it was the emerging sort of like suburbs and stuff. At the time, miles away from Brighton, which is not people. It's about a 15-minute drive.
That's right.
But back then it was pretty sort of out there.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in Cheltenham. So my mum is an import.
Yep.
So she came from Germany. She was born in Germany, just after the war.
Yes.
And migrated out here with my grandpa and grandma. So they lived in Adelaide.
Okay.
So Mum worked for my grandpa's office. So we got a family business. So
Okay.
it's fourth generation.
Is it really?
Yeah. So it's the oldest gift toy company in Australia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I
was kind of working out where it started from. So it was her dad's.
No. So it was my dad's.
Okay.
Yeah. So on dad's side. So it was my great grandfather.
Okay.
He started in 1913.
Oh my goodness. So that's still the same.
It's the same trading company that holds it.
Okay.
So C. Rushton and Company.
Yes.
But obviously it's just known as Rusco.
Yeah.
Which is RUS for Rushton and CO for Company. So that
I didn't know.
So there you go. So I've got a lot of useless information up here, Jay. So don't worry about it. This is only the beginning. Don't be a bull at a gate. Just calm down.
Yeah, so much there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how that started. And of course now it's fourth generation. It's evolved over the years. It was anything from originally started with hat feathers and stuff for the horse races and things like that, which back then was a real big thing. So they used to be imported from Europe.
Okay.
And and then Grandpa did a lot of glassware and homewares and stuff. So like Riedel glassware and that, he brought a lot of that WMF cutlery and things, which most hotels use now.
Wow.
So all that sort of stuff was what the family was sort of doing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a lot of that sort of thing. So you had a lot of friends in Europe, and back then to go to Europe was a massive undertaking. I mean, some of the stories, he'd be on a ship going back to London to do a buying trip, and back then Dad would be left with a nanny or something because obviously they can't go, and the trip to Europe was 3-4 months, right? So it'd be 6 weeks to get there, 6 weeks to come back, and then obviously you got your buying trip in between. And the stories was Grandpa would be on the ship, the same one as the Ashes tour, with the cricketers and stuff. And because he talked to everyone as normal, because he got 6 weeks cabin fever with everyone. Yeah. So it was like just the people you meet and the places you stop on the way, India and all these ports along the way, where the ship itself is buying and selling stuff and moving on.
Gosh.
Yeah, so it was an interesting time. Not the jump on an A380 and you're there in 23 hours and we crack the shits that even that takes too long.
Yeah, that's right. How they do it now?
Yeah, you didn't get fevers or bloody scurvy or anything like that. You land feeling pretty good. So
I thought it was your folks that started the business.
No. So it was it's now fourth generation. Yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah.
And then when did it evolve?
It came into toys in the 70s. So
okay.
Grandpa and this is when sort of Dad started getting involved. When they did their trips to Japan and Korea and stuff, a lot of those factories were making tin toys and things like that. Okay. And so the toys sort of side of it got left for Dad to do, and that slowly grew as Japan sort of became more of an export market than an internal market. So they went during the sort of the 70s and stuff and post-war. They used to consume everything internally. Okay. And then when things dried up internally or when, the market, turned or when the age gap appeared, which is obviously Japan's got a big problem with, an aging population and growth rates. And so what they then did was export. And so that's when that sort of corridor started opening up. And then the migration from Japan, then obviously a bit of Taiwan and then obviously into Hong Kong because Hong Kong still being the British, realm was easy to deal with. Yeah. And then from there on into China. So so that's how it sort of evolved.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, and without boring everyone, there's a whole heap of different levels of, different markets and things like that. But then we started distributing a Japanese company called Nikko. And that was we did that for 30 odd years. I can see there's one up on your shelf there.
We do.
You've been to the shop of Karl.
Yeah, the shop of Karl. It's a gift that keeps giving, right?
It is. Yeah. There's a demo for everyone.
Absolutely.
And then we migrated with the demise of that business. We then did our own branding and stuff like that. So now we actually do our own product development, packaging, marketing, everything in house. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the business side of it, which is obviously where I grew up in Cheltenham, and we were based in Collingwood at the time.
Okay.
So it wasn't too bad to get to, and things like that. So.
So you were
Yeah, so I grew up. I was born in Sandringham and I grew up in Cheltenham, so I was always bayside.
Yes.
Which was great because I do like the water and I do like just having that sort of freedom to ride your pushy and that's what it was back in my day. It was push bike everywhere. So I grew up in Cheltenham. I've got an older brother and a younger sister.
Yes.
So there was the five of us. And I had a great childhood. I mean, looking back on it, Joe's. I don't have any regrets or anything like that. I did everything I sort of wanted to do. I was always a fairly independent person.
Mm.
Actually, a family friend said to me actually at Christmas time, she just said, and she's known me since I was born pretty much, and she just said, you've always just been this quiet.
What?
Yeah. Just shove a microphone in his face. I've always been this quiet boy who just thinks about it and goes about it and does it, like sort of type mentality, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what I am like. My mum's side of the family, so obviously, mum being German, grandpa was Ukrainian.
Okay.
And so I always say to myself, I've got this Ukrainian, or I won't say Russian. I got this Ukrainian mindset of, because he came off the farm, and back then, they didn't have Bunnings or anything. It was you had to do stuff yourself, So and I think I've got his knack of doing stuff, fixing things, making things. But I think I've got maybe a little bit of the German efficiency thrown into it, So the mixes sort of come through, and so I apply myself, but I apply myself reasonably methodically, and whatever. But I can only ever do something 100%. I can't do 80%. I can't do 90%. I can't do 20%. It has to be either 100% or I don't. There's no point doing it, right? So I have a bit of an issue with that sometimes, but
perfection.
When you work for yourself, that can sort of. Well, it can make things a little bit tricky, I suppose, but you got to do it. You got to do it that way. But how
many years difference between your siblings?
Okay, so Dane was 2 years older than me. Yeah, yep. So he was a 75. So, and my sister Laura, she is 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a split. Yeah, mum had a lot of problems. Conceiving.
Okay.
Yeah, like she had a lot of miscarriages and stuff. Like I think she had like 8 or it was a lot. Geez. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, and it was at certain stages where the doctors, obviously technology and whatever, back in the 70s and that, but they said, look, we don't know whether you're going to be able to carry a baby full term and stuff like that. So I guess when Dane was born, it was a pretty big blessing to the family.
Yeah.
And then me, and then obviously Laura.
Yeah.
So and we all grew up in Cheltenham. We were at the family home for 32 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that was our home. Obviously, numerous extensions and stuff as the family got bigger and space and things like that. But that's where we knew. But interesting fact, Joes, and you will like these. I know you like interesting facts. I know you love. You love a fact, right? When I was born, right, and it's not stroking my ego because I don't know if it's something that you sort of see as I suppose it's a positive. I was born with a cowl over my face.
Oh,
right, and people are probably now googling the crap out of that. And what does that mean? And don't ask me to spell it because it's.
Is it like COWL?
Yeah, WL. Yeah,
cowl.
Yeah. And so what it is, it's your membrane on your forehead that comes over your face when you're born, and it recedes. It recedes over hours or whatever. Anyway, when I was born, the story goes that the doctor at the time got everyone in the hospital.
Hang on.
Well, they are, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
Not a place you want to check into, but you want to check out.
No,
of
that's
it.
true.
Yeah.
Not by choice.
And so he got everyone in the hospital, and he goes, "This is something you probably never see again. It's apparently reasonably rare." So, but the story goes that you will be a prominent person and you will never drown.
Oh my goodness!
So, and examples of people who have been born with that is Winston Churchill.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. So, hence my middle name, Winston. There you go, Winston.
No.
Yeah.
Are you serious? I did not know that.
There you go. Well,
wait, stop the press.
As I said, they don't worry. There's you want the lives to be worth telling. It's you waited till season 3 to get in here. I told you I'm an open book. Yeah.
Wait.
I even say that on my dating profile and I still get nowhere, so don't worry. Obviously, not many people like to read. Obviously, people like to read.
We will get to that later.
So I loved it. I loved growing up in Cheltenham. I mean, we had so much on offer. Like, I mean, you know, Turner Road swimming pools, the beach, the golf course, because I used to play golf. I started golf when I was reasonably young, sort of around 11, 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with a group of
Did anyone else play
friends.
golf in the family?
Dad does.
Okay.
My brother attempted it, but yeah, he didn't have the temperament for that.
Okay.
So that didn't last very long.
Yeah, right.
And even Mum did socially for a little bit there with some of her for a little bit, and so I enjoyed my sports, and of course you'd be on your pushy, so you'd be doing everything. But we used to. I was in Cub Scouts, and they used to do this thing. They wouldn't do it now. Called Bob a Job, and
I've heard of that.
Yeah, so for a week or so, I think it was. You'd go around.
20 cents.
Yeah, you'd go around to the neighbourhood, and if someone needed their, I don't know, rubbish put out or little jobs, right? And of course, you'd offer your services, and they would donate money to go to the Scouts.
Yeah.
And I remember, I used to be pretty entrepreneurial. And
I reckon you would.
I used to think.
I'm not surprised.
I used to think we could up this. We could, wash someone's car for $5, sort of thing. And I thought surely we could raise the level a little bit. So anyway, I mean, for a week or something or other, I think I raised like $28-30. And back then,
that's a lot of money.
When a Mars bar is 25 cents, you can buy a lot of crap for that. My favourite pinball machine. Yeah, I was a high roller. It's like, Jesus.
That's so good.
Yeah, so it worked out that it was, pretty good for the Scouts, sort of thing. So I thought, if it's good for the Scouts, why can't it be good for me? So come school holidays, right? Because I think we'll, I haven't got kids, but I think back then, you could, maybe naively, but you could sort of do more, freedom and stuff, and not have the, premonitions of someone's a pedophile or whatever.
Yes, yes.
So I grew up in a court.
Yeah.
So all the kids were roughly about the same age.
Yeah.
So we all, even though we all went to different schools or whatever, but we all got along.
Yes.
And we all played, cricket and all those sort of fun things in the court, And so there was a couple of kids that I used to hang around with at school holidays. And so what we would do is I said, hey, for 2 days, we'll go do this Bob a Job stuff, right? But we were before gym, right? We were doing Karl's mowing, we were doing Karl's cleaning cars, doing gardening, whatever it was, right? And what you do is you walk around to the house. Anyone that had a dirty car or had grass that was too long, you just knock on the door and say, hey mate, $10, I'll do your grass, front and back. Yeah, all right. So we did that. So we'd go around for literally a day or two. We would have hundreds of dollars, right? Sort of thing.
Ripper.
And you sort of sit there and go, okay, well, there's my school holidays.
Yeah.
So all the kids that were sort of in the group would go play golf. We'd go to the Turner Road pools, which was our local swimming pool. You'd go down the beach. You'd have an ice cream, whatever it was. It was just money was pulled to do whatever you want. So I was never asking parents for money.
Yeah.
Right. I never asked my parents for money.
Resource for you.
We all resourced for ourselves, and we all did it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, back then, I think things were cheaper to do, but still,
it's still the same kind of thing.
Still in relative, after a game of golf, we sat back and had sarsaparilla and burped our heads off. And I know, yeah.
Look, I asked sarsaparilla just on that.
There's vile in a can.
There's people that really like it and people that really don't like it.
Well, I just did it to be social.
I love sarsaparilla.
Yeah, it was Jesus, awesome. Bring out the burps. But anyway,
oh my God.
Yeah, so that's what I did mainly in my youth and things like that. But I think I was probably a bit more, I'm not going to say business-minded, but maybe I was a bit more sort of like, I don't like relying on other people, and the problem I've got is if I apply my standards to other people, unfortunately, I'm not saying they fail because that's probably not really fair because everyone's their own people, but I guess they just don't measure up to how I perceive to treat people maybe. And maybe, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to sound like as if everyone's in that boat. But I don't know. I just try not to put too much reliance on other people. It's good to share with other people without a doubt. It's more. I always find things are far better shared than not. But I just try not to put too much emphasis on them because, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, we're all human. And,
some people are unloyal.
Yeah. So that was pretty much my youth. And when we'd go around family holidays and, you know, stuff like that. Of course, back then you didn't fly anywhere.
Yes.
It was always, you know, the car trip and stuff like that. And when we had a caravan at one stage. And if anyone knows my father, he's not the most patient person. And weirdly enough, we had a Jayco caravan and whoever put it together, so on the handbrake, you have the cable and it's got like a U-bolt thing that pulls the cable tight.
Yeah.
And so he put it on backwards, so therefore it would rub on the inside of the tyre, right? And of course we didn't know this.
Oh.
And every time, because we'd go to Noosa, this is back in the days when Noosa was a fishing village, right? The main street was sand, right? It was awesome, right? Not what it is now. It was awesome, right? Like, you know, and we would stay in the caravan park. So every time we'd drive up, so 2,000 Ks up in the Ford that used to smell like fuel, so we used to all throw up in the back. Good build standards back then. And so we get to Noosa, have our holiday up there, and we'll drive back. Every single time we hit Canoona Barrabran, the tyre would explode.
Oh, for God's sake!
Right?
I know that town.
Yep, the guy at the borough repairs there knew us in the end because it would happen 3 times, and then we worked out what it was. It was the cable running on the inside of the tyre. It was that distance that made it go. So yeah, so my old man was you know, pretty cheesed off with Jayco and.
So how old
and anyone else who was around it, to be honest with you. But it was one of those typical trips, you know.
How old were you when you used to head up there? Like primary school?
Yeah, it would have been primary school because we never got to leave school early. Yeah. I mean, Jodes, I'd go to school, I'd be 3/4 dead, you know. I'd still be going to school. I could have the world's, you know, dengue fever, flu, whatever, and Mum would still send me to school.
That's very different.
Which is fine. Some days I certainly didn't feel like it, but I mean, I wasn't never really a massively sick person, but we probably would have been, I reckon I would have been maybe 6, 8, that sort of age through to about 12, 13, sort of maybe around that sort of thing. Once I got to senior school, like secondary school or whatever, that side of it obviously got a bit harder. And we got a holiday house down at Rye in the mid 80s.
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time down there.
Yeah, that was your holiday.
That sort of changed from the caravan to the holiday house.
Yeah, absolutely. Just think when you said school, describe what school was like for you and did you like school? Where did you go to school in primary school?
So I went to Haileybury from pretty much kindergarten all the way through to the senior school.
Oh, you started there.
Yeah, so I was one of 5.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so at the end we actually sort of got recognised. I don't know whether it was for stupidity of your parents who just wanted to literally have no money for 20 years.
So you went there from prep?
Yeah, so I did go to a kindergarten in Cheltenham for I think it was a year, which I remember. It was, I actually looked it up, trying to see if it's not there anymore, unfortunately, but it was on Follett Road in Cheltenham. Okay. And and then I went to Haileybury because my brother was going to Haileybury. Okay. So it obviously made sense, you know, sort of type thing. So
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know you started.
Yeah. So Mrs. Fox was the kindergarten teacher. Weird parties. I don't know. I can recall every teacher, which I don't know whether that's good or bad. But Mrs. Fox, she was a really nice lady. Mrs. Cleveland, grade 1, she was okay. Mrs. Berry, grade 2, she was awesome. She actually had a place at Red Hill as well. She was a really nice person. Grade 3, Mr. Davis. Jeez. He used to eat the pie. So he used to get a pie every day. Back then we had tuck shop Monday and Friday. Oh, yes. He'd have the pie. You'd get a pie. You'd take the top of it off, eat the meat, and feed the rest of it to the birds. That was his Monday and Friday ritual.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, a nice bloke actually. He was a really nice guy.
So you didn't have a change of school as such. It was on the same campus then?
Yeah, so that was all the same campus up till year 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and then year 9 to year 12, you have to go out to the senior school, which is out in Keysborough.
Okay.
Yep, and that's when you start meeting obviously a whole group of different people, you know, obviously same age and whatever.
And it was all single sex.
It's also yeah. That's why I'm handicapped from day one. Yeah.
So it was single sex from prep.
I still really thank my parents for that idea. And the weird part is my dad's a Wesley boy. Okay. And Grandpa was a Wesley boy. Okay. You know, sort of thing. And actually, my grandpa started the old Wesleyans hockey, old hockey thing, and there's actually a trophy in his honour. But anyway, so my dad went to an all boys school as well, and he realised how socially retarded that makes you. And so, well, that's good. Let's send my shining star son there too, so that he can be socially retarded too.
Oh, good on you, Dad.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. Yeah.
It's a nice one.
Yeah, don't worry. That was one of the COVID talks we had. Where
By the way,
any disappointments in your life, Dad? Well, son, where's your wife? Oh, okay.
Well, you see, so primary school and high school, most people tended to have liked primary school, but not so much high school.
I didn't have a problem with school.
Yeah.
I'm not a scholastic person, and Haileybury was obviously very sort of, even back then, was driven for being scholastic and stuff. But they did have a lot of sports and things, and again, I was never an elite sportsman neither, but I enjoyed participating in everything that I possibly could.
Okay.
I even did a bit of drama.
Hello.
And I know you will like this, Jodes. I know you will love this. I was actually interviewed by the ABC to go on one of their shows. I had to audition.
No way.
Yeah, grade 6. I had to do an audition. Yeah.
What was it for?
Oh, don't ask.
Oh my gosh.
Because I don't think the show ever went ahead. It was a kids' show.
Okay.
But it was going to be that back then they were trying to obviously get younger. It was shows like I'm trying to think because I don't really watch that stuff, but it would have been like
I just thought of
Punky Brewster, I'm not saying exactly
like
the same thing, but like a sitcom-y thing, but it was obviously around more focused on the kids' base rather than an adult base. Yeah, or is it Malcolm in the Middle or whatever? I could have done all sorts of weird ass stuff. I could have been infamous rather than famous.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so I did all that in school, and the school did have a lot of opportunity in that sort of stuff. I probably changed a little bit of my mindset with maybe school in general. In year 8, we had this camp called Camp Pelican, right? Which which in Haileybury was known as Alcatraz, right? Like if you're going to go to Camp Pelican, which you have to do when you're in year 8 is the first year you go to Camp Pelican,
okay,
and it goes for a week.
Oh, jeez.
Right, and you do it in year 8, year 9, and year 10. Because obviously you have VCE, you have VCE, so that they don't do the camp. And I remember year 8 because obviously I had other friends that went to Haileybury that were older, and they all said, "Oh, yeah, Camp Pelican sucks," and all this sort of stuff. So I remember going to Camp Pelican in year 8, and if you talk about how soft youth of today is, Joes, I mean, you know what I'm getting at. You're up at 6 o'clock.
Oh, my gosh.
You're running up the beach, in pitch black, and you're jumping in cold water, naked. Yes, it was an all-boys school, so everyone had – it was a sausage fest. And you'd be back by 7 o'clock. You then had breakfast. You then had to, do whatever jobs you were required to do. And then in that, you'd do a 3-day hike.
Oh, jeez.
All right, and the 3-day hike, it's not through the CBD of Melbourne.
No.
We were down at Bairnsdale.
Oh, I was going to say.
So I was down on the Gippsland Lakes.
Yeah, okay.
And so you had to catch the train down there, and everything got left at the door. You couldn't have any electronics. I mean, there was no phones or anything, but you couldn't have the Sony Walkman. Heaven forbid that you listen to some tape A, side A. No. It was pretty full on. You're hiking through the Mitchell River National Park. You had a compass, you had a map, and you had a divvy sheet. That was your tent.
Okay.
All right, and someone had a cooking set, and they used to hang the food up in the trees, and you used to have to locate your food. So luckily, I was in Scout, so I knew how to read a map and use a compass and all that sort of stuff. And you had the radio in every night, so it wasn't completely isolated.
Okay.
But that was it.
Jeez, so you were like 14.
And it was like a 30 plus K hike. And you had these spots where you camped the night. You get to, and the food was located up in a tree somewhere. Because it was in the bush.
It's like I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
Pretty much, yeah. But
kind of.
Probably less bullshit. But
Jeez.
yeah. So that was Camp Pelican. So the first year I did it, I had this thing of, this sucks, whatever. And because you got to do it, you can't get out of it.
Okay.
Because all the, less adventurous people, like, certainly the Asian side of things and the Indians and that, they didn't like to do anything like that,
yes.
Which is, probably not in their culture or whatever.
Yeah.
Totally get it, but it was bad luck. You had to do it.
Yeah,
right? So the idea would have been just
not negotiable.
Yeah, not negotiable. And so the second year I did it, I changed my mentality. Instead of saying this is going to suck, this sucks, can't hate this, and because you're riding the rails for 2 hours, getting down to the joint, going this sucks, whatever. I just sort of thought, no, change the mindset. This is going to be fun. I'm going to go whitewater rafting, kayaking, which we did all those sort of things, too. And I'm going to go for a walk in the bush, and I'm going to, hopefully not get bitten by a snake, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And I changed my mentality on it, and I had a ball.
Yeah, sweet.
And you could see the kids that didn't. Yeah. And it was a team building process. It was, you had to do like a ropes course and a big wall and everything else. So you all had to try and work together as your group. You're in groups of 7, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
And so you had to work together as a group. So, you had to obviously lift the weakest one to get up to your level so you can all, achieve what you needed to achieve. Yeah. So for changing mentality, it certainly helped.
That's good.
And so I think that sort of helped in a lot of areas in future life to sort of get on with it and change a negative into a positive as much as you can.
Very much you.
Probably.
Very much
you.
you.
Yeah, probably.
You don't reckon?
No, you're probably right. I mean, I've got a very good friend, Gary, who I've known since I dated my first girlfriend because he was dating my girlfriend's sister. Okay. Right? We're still friends. So read into that what you will. we're still good friends.
Oh, that's funny.
But he just says to me, nearly every time I see him, we catch up spasmodically. He just goes, Karl, he goes, you never change.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'll never, ever see you pissed off.
Yeah.
Even when you got moments where you should be, could be, would be. He goes, I never see you. I never see you off kilter, at all. And I just said, yeah, no, and he's seen me on a golf course too. So, if you ever need to be tested, take up the game of golf. People go, it's not a sport. No. But so I am, I guess mentality wise, I guess I did sort of evolve from school to sort of problem solve a bit better. Yeah. Bitching and moaning and complaining about stuff, while it might make you feel good for 10 minutes, makes anyone else listening to it feel like, Jesus, I don't get paid enough for this, right? And it doesn't solve anything. No. I get it. You've got to vent yourself somehow, right? And everyone does it in a different way. And I don't understand how people can literally go so far. I'm not going to say violent, but can really go to that level of, I don't know, pent up angst or whatever over usually the most trivial bullshit you've ever come across. Yeah. And I can't do that. It just takes too much energy, and I just can't be bothered. I just don't see the point of it. Yeah. I'm very black and white,
I don't think you're built like that, though.
Yeah, I'm very black and white. My mum always says to me, goes, you could have been a policeman. You would have been a perfect policeman. And I said, well, yeah, maybe. But I just said, she just goes, you're so black and white, about stuff. And I don't technically really do grey. Yeah. So it's either, as I said, it's the 100% thing or it's a 0. It's
all in.
Yeah.
All in. I have another one here, but you have mentioned your holidays, but any memorable trips or outings that you did with your family when you were a kid?
Yeah, Dad wasn't a camper.
Okay.
Right, sort of thing. I'm not going to say he even liked the idea of it, sort of thing. And I suppose the caravan was probably the happy medium, that we got into.
Yes,
we did have some camping experiences. Mm-hmm. We were lucky enough, and when I was maybe a year old or so, because Grandpa was actually very very into sailing.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
so
wow.
into water and that. Now I'm not, because it doesn't have an engine. So, but each their own. I don't begrudge it. So they used to have boats a fair bit, and so he actually was going to do the America's Cup.
Oh wow.
And Olympics with yachting. He was the first, and I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying this. The family story is that he was the first person in Australia to have an aluminium masted yacht.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and back then that would have been, because it was timber, and that would have been, very
cutting edge.
Very cutting edge. Probably in the 60s, I think that was. Wow. So we've always been sort of around the water and obviously live in Bayside. Mm. So we were lucky enough, Dad, when we were young, so he bought a boat, And we had some adventures with that, sort of thing. Like we'd go to Malakuta for Easter. Easter Malakuta was sort of like one of the trips. We'd hire a log cabin. There'd be a group of us. There'd be a couple of us that would hire log cabins, and we'd take the boat and that. We did one trip once to Eildon.
Okay.
And this was a big camping trip, So we had the boat and we loaded everything on the boat, and there was a group of us. There was about 4 boats. And we camp at a place called the Pines, and not to be, it's not Frankston Pines, it's it's the Pines in Eildon, and it was a pine plantation on the other side of Eildon, and so you go out from Fraser Park and you go across and camp there. So Dad buys the tent, we've got these big, I guess I think it's a 6-man tent, canvas tent.
Okay.
Back in the day, I've still got it, and I still use it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it's called the Taj Mahal in other circles, but it's so 70s, like brown, orange, white. You just can't get more porn than that. I mean, you literally are in the bush with a camper, aren't you? So
That's right.
You can't get much further. So we took that to Eildon, and we're setting up because it's pretty much night time. So Dad's setting up the tent, from fucking pole 3 to, whatever.
It's not going.
And of course I was only, I would have been maybe 5.
Okay.
5 or whatever. So pretty young. And Laura obviously would have been only, a baby still. So Dad's setting up this tent, and in the morning we're waking up, we can smell this sort of like plasticky smell,
Oh, no.
And I'm sort of thinking, it's just a new tent. So what do? He put the tent up over someone's old fireplace. So there's these little tiny burn marks in the bottom of the floor where the plastic has started to sort of melt. So that was our first camping trip. To be honest with you, I don't think
that was it.
I don't think the tent was ever put up again until I was 16 or whatever, going camping with some of my brother's mates up on the Murray. That was the next time it got used. So and I've still got the tent today. So the tent is nearly 50 years old.
Goodness.
Still works, still fine, all the rest of it. It goes up every Christmas party and and all that for anyone who plows into it. But we
That's funny.
Yeah, we tried. We tried a bit of everything, and Dad tried. I mean, the caravan really was probably the easier way with 3 kids to go on trips and stuff. Because again, you got to remember, this is back in the day where traveling by air was so expensive. It was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
It was cheaper to drag everyone up in a V8 powered car that leaked fuel. And literally it did, because we used to throw up. And it was cheaper to do that than it was to fly, and sometimes actually there was, before we did get the caravan, we did go to Noosa and we stayed at this sort of like apartment block thing up in the hill, and we did do that a couple of times with a couple of families before we got the caravan, and that was our September holidays was dragging up to Noosa and doing that sort of side of things, which I love, I mean, obviously we used to go to Adelaide to catch up with relatives and stuff a fair bit, because my mum's sister still lives in Adelaide, and I got some cousins over there and things like that. So we do go over there every now and then to catch up with them. They're all got families and that now, so it's even nicer, I suppose. Yeah. Like to sort of be Uncle Karl and take over
fun uncle.
Yeah, exactly. Take over some samples and. You got to keep the kids entertained, Joe.
That's right, I know.
Yeah, they love it when Uncle Karl rolls in. When he rolls into town. Yeah, you got to load them up.
Absolutely. Well, moving into the next segment is family life as an adult. Ooh, I do know the answer to this. Do I? No, I do. There's no secrets here. Are you, or have you ever been married?
Not that I know of. No. I It's not that I don't begrudge being married. As a good friend of mine would say, the trap. He was actually in season 2, so there you go. He didn't elaborate on the trap trap. But he's cringing now in the corner, shaking like a leaf. That's okay.
Just when I said his name at my 50th, I do remember your comment when I mentioned his name at my 50th, and he was panicking. Let me just double check and see what episode was he?
He was near Christmas, I think.
He was. He was in season 2. I think season 2, episode 6.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to.
So if anyone wants to go back and hear a whole bunch of lies, they're all lies.
It's pulling our chain.
Yeah, but no, I was never married.
And no children?
No, definitely none that I know of.
Do you ever want children?
You know, I was funny. I remember going finishing school. You know, and you sort of think, oh, you know, school's finished. What's next? Sort of type thing. And for me, it was never on a horizon of kids, you know, family, you know, and all those sort of things. It was never one of those things that was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get married, can't wait to have kids, or those sort of things in my mind. Another friend of mine, we finished school together, and same, he was always, you know, a family and kids and stuff, which he went on and did. And I always sort of thought, oh, okay, and I thought, oh, that's fair enough. And I was sort of like, I mean, obviously being socially retarded coming from an all-boys school, as I touched on before, is like, I mean, just even talking to a girl was, especially one that you didn't know, you know, sort of thing, would have been like, you know, pretty much crap your pants, you know, material like sort of thing. And even today, like, you know, I suppose there is still remnants of that. I'm probably a little bit more confident in myself, but, you know, you still, you know, I'm not going to say rejection because, Jesus, I've had some of that. That's a whole nother book. That's another book, Jody. I should have brought it.
That's right.
The thing is, I think it was never number one in my mind to, you know, to have kids, I suppose, is probably the thing. Marriage, I've never really thought of it, you know, because I guess that's, you know, connotation is married kids, you know, sort of thing. So I never was probably really put any onus on that. And what will be was probably my mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I had some tormenting years, I suppose, when I was sort of like 17 through to about 25 for various reasons. And I had my first girlfriend, I was 18, 19, who I met at TAFE. And she was really cool, yeah, sort of type thing. You know, we got along very well. She taught me a lot of things because obviously I knew nothing, being a social retard. And
good on you.
You know, I'm going to stick with that because it was damn true. I never really thought of it that way. And of course, then friends around me started to go through that process of know marriage and kids and that, and I was always, I mean, you know, that's their life, but I was always hands on. I was always available. You know, helped out, whatever. And I suppose I lived a little bit of that through them, not married, but, you know, they had kids and, you know, and things like that, which, you know, obviously I still see today. So I never really sort of thought I was missing out on anything. And actually at my 30th, I met I guess I should say, well, probably the best way to put it is my serious relationship, I suppose, you know, bought a house together, all that sort of stuff. She had already had a child. Which was, you know, again, accepted in our family as if it was our own. There was no no sort of, you know, ill there or anything.
Yeah.
And we got engaged, but that was as far as it got for numerous reasons. And I think that was probably the closest I got. And, you know, you should never say never. I mean, kids, no. At this stage, no.
Yeah.
Sort of type thing. And that's, I'm made peace with that. I'm fine with that. I do have a nephew, a 9-year-old nephew that keeps me busy at times.
Yes.
And so I don't think I've missed out on anything. My auntie who lives in America, my dad's sister, she just goes, when she visited last time, she goes, it really is a shame you didn't, you know, breed.
Oh, geez.
She did say it that way. She's very, very blunt. She goes, you would have made a good father. And I just said, well, I appreciate, you know, the
thanks for the sentiment.
The sentiment. I said, look, I do my best, you know, sort of type thing, like obviously with my nephew and that, but and other people's kids in that. But I think probably the thing in the back of my mind, and we did try to have kids actually, I should say, with Kylie at the time, my serious partner. We did try and have kids, but she was a bit older and had complications. And I just said, look, it's just not worth it. I didn't want to have any risk and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. And I didn't have that dire need, you know, sort of thing. And I didn't want her to risk her health or you know, health of the baby or whatever, you know, for whatever reason. So I just said, look, yeah, we tried, we gave it a go. And I said, I think that's I think that sort of ends that sort of scenario, which I never had a problem with. And at the time, we had a rep who our Queensland rep, Warren Vines, really nice bloke. You couldn't hate him. He was just a happy-go-lucky bloke. And I used to go up every now and then to call on some customers, and I used to stay with him. He actually had a place he had a unit in Noosa. He actually used to have Noosa Toy World.
Okay.
And so he then went out repping. He's unfortunately, without getting negative, his wife died of breast cancer.
Oh, gee.
And it really probably was, I'm not going to say the end of him, but it was the shock of him that really made it hard for him to do the shop and stuff. So we put him on as a rep. He was shithouse rep. Oh. Like he did next to nothing, but he was a good bloke, and we tried to help him and stuff like that. Anyway, I'd go up and stay with him, and he's a really nice guy. And again, he was in a very similar situation to me, where his partner, wife at the time, who did pass away, she had already had a child.
Okay.
Right, sort of thing. And probably the same scenario I was with Kylie, where she already had a child. And I remember talking to him just openly in that, because he was I'd take him out for dinner, and I said, Warren, do you ever regret it? Because obviously he was a fair bit older than me. He's 20 plus years older than me.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't regret it at all. He goes, I had a great relationship, and he has a good relationship with her child, and stuff like that. And he goes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I don't know, we're all got different opinions and stuff like that, but it sort of helped me sort of maybe realise that it is okay to not be in that situation, because again, in my dating profiles, I hate to go back to the dark side, but you sort of feel as though you're a bit of a weirdo because you don't have kids, you've never been married, and most people then sit back and go, well, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, but it's circumstantial though.
Of course it is, but I mean, it's not a circumstantial world. Joe, it's not a circumstantial world when it's an easy left and right on someone for whatever reason, and that's meant to be. And they all say, "I'm looking for Mr. Perfect, Mr. Forever." You don't even freaking get a chance to even get him to meet. So
to have the chance to explain.
Well, that's exactly right. So you don't get a chance to explain yourself, and you can't put into the fact that you're a social retard from birth, and then therefore I'm working on it, sort of type thing. But I mean, there are all things that make it so much more difficult than and that's why I didn't know whether I was being abnormal, whether there was something wrong with me. I mean, shit, is there something wrong with me? My first girlfriend, Alice, she wanted kids and family and stuff like that, And in retrospect, I mean, I was only young. I was only 18, 19. As I said, I had a lot of family things going on, and I had some things in my head that were bucket list things to do, and I had to do them, and I wanted to do them. And one of them was travel overseas, to Europe and stuff, because I've always wanted to go to Europe. And we got along so well and all the rest of it, but we probably just weren't at the right time.
Yes.
Sort of thing. She was probably older than, had some experiences, but she was probably older in terms of what she wanted more so than probably with me. Is that my wasted opportunity? Who knows? Sort of thing. That's life, Joe. That's life. I don't dwell on it or anything. If I saw her in the street, which I wouldn't because she lives up in Albury or something, I think. But if I did see her in the street, I'd be just as nice to her as I would have been
exactly
at the time. So
exactly right.
I try not to have any. I mean, I don't hate people and stuff. I might not agree with them, but I don't have time for hate. And, I hate everyone evenly. I don't discriminate.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't discriminate.
Any of them.
Yeah. Just do 100 and 100 zone, will you, people?
So you talked about your relationships and I guess there hasn't been anyone to chat to around what online dating is like these days. Like it's clearly a hard gig, and you've met a few people through your online dating, but it's quite brutal though, isn't it?
It's
and where else do you meet people?
Yeah, I'm not a social media person.
Yeah.
Like, this is very technical to me. You got a nice big screen with things waving up and down. It's right. Like as if there was an earthquake in Montana.
I think that's my what do you call that? Richter scale.
Richter scale. Yeah. We're going to clock that sucker. Don't even worry about that. I think, as I say,
you've talked about retirement on the dating scene, and then you go, no.
The problem is you have this eternal flame for there's got to be someone out there for me.
Yes.
Right, sort of type thing, I suppose. You know, I mean, you're lucky. I mean, you know, I suppose in a way that's the way I look at some people in that. And, I mean, some people look at me and say, I'm lucky. You know, I'm not trapped. I'm not, you know. and please, people, take this as a grain of salt. Remember, I hate everyone evenly. It's more so the people are so disposable.
Yeah.
Right? You know, in their lives. And I don't mean that necessarily with people, but it is becoming that. It's so disposable. People are so quick to either judge because they've got a platform to either judge from, right? Or they have this ability to think that because I watch something on YouTube, it then means that it's the gospel, and then therefore I can then turn around and you condemn everyone to whatever they're doing wrong or whatever, right? And things like that. Everyone's different, right? And I think that's the exciting part of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you've travelled. I know you have and things like that. The exciting part of the world is that we all do shit differently.
Yes, yes.
You know, and it's embracing that difference. Again, the Camp Pelican story.
Yes.
Hated the first one, change your mindset for the second one.
For sure.
Right? And when in Rome, you know, all those sort of type of things, you know. Don't piss in the Trevi Fountain. You'll get locked up. But my auntie swam naked in it.
Did she?
There you go. There's a story from the I think late 50s. Yeah, she travelled and Anyway,
Goodness.
that was back before it was what it is today. But
And no photos of that then?
no, hopefully not. But she's very liberal. She'll tell you about it.
Spot on.
Yeah. But I think that's the problem because life has become so. I mean, people like to say chaotic and stuff, but it's only as chaotic as you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Put your phone down, people.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going out for dinner, don't take it. Leave it in the car.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I do. I don't take it anywhere. Unless I have to have it, I don't have it. You know, usually on the weekends it stays on the charger in the shed or whatever, and I just look at it spasmodically in case someone's fallen off a cliff or someone's actually going to invite me out for a dinner. So it just stays in the shed, Jones. and that's it. So I think unfortunately we've become this society where it's so judgmental and stuff, and the whether it be barriers or what come up, and people hide behind things or excuses. And I'm not an excuse person. I do not do excuses. Right? If you did something and it was wrong, you own it. You just go, yeah, shit, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have done it or whatever. That's it. Move on.
Yeah.
Right? So I think I don't do excuses. You know, I don't blame anyone else. You got to cop it on the chin. If it's not what you want, change it.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do that yourself. You know, no one's going to do it for you. And really, if you want it badly enough, no one should do it for you.
Yeah.
You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I've never been envious of anyone. Someone drives down the road with a Ferrari, I go, yeah, good on you, mate. I wouldn't buy one, but good luck to you. You know, sort of type thing. You know, he's got a smile on his face, or she has. You know, or whatever. Yes. Good on him.
Yes.
I'm very much like that. So when you go in relationships, so my first girlfriend, Alice, you know, 4.5 years, we did a lot of stuff together. She taught me a hell of a lot because I, as I said, social retard, knew nothing. And she was really good. And I'm sure that some girlfriends of the past would thank her for it because, you know, really, and I'm not saying I'm Fabio or anything like that because obviously I'm not. You know, and so I really went through my 20s after that relationship breakdown. Had a few things going on in my life. My brother passed away. Obviously, you know, relationship ended. And I guess I was probably lost a little bit in terms of, I mean, a lot of, you know, family infighting and you know, emotion going everywhere, which is understandable. And work was really, really bad. We had to restructure pretty much.
Okay.
And that was when I sort of started taking the reins of the business.
How old were you when he passed away?
So I was, good question. I was probably 21, 22.
Okay. Did he work in the business?
So he worked in the warehouse, but he was never really into it.
Okay.
Yeah, like he was in the warehouse for a bit. He did a little bit of sales when we did Toy Fair and things like that, but he was never really into it. My brother was very hands-on.
Okay.
You know, he would have made a great mechanic or stuff like that. Unfortunately, because the rules are different these days to what they were back then, my brother wasn't scholastic, but he was probably like me, probably even to some degrees better, mechanically minded.
Okay.
You know, he used to pull his motorbike apart to literally every single screw, like a big KX 250 motorbike. He'd pull apart into bits. Yeah. No book, no nothing, right? And put it all back together again, make it run better.
Jeez.
You know, like stuff like that. He was amazing like that. unfortunately, wrong crowd back in the day, back in the 90s, mid-late 90s, there was a epidemic, I suppose, in Australia, but probably more so Victoria, I think, of heroin, heroin usage. And he just got in the wrong crowd. He used to smoke pot. And, we all sort of knew that, but it was like, okay, well, I suppose that's, not great, but it wasn't really harmless, I guess harmless. But it's what it progresses on to. And, he went down.
Harder drug.
Yeah, he went down to a different path that he thought was good. At the time, like when he was 16, he did work experience at JRO Helicopters in Moorabbin. We lived near Moorabbin Airport. And he did. I think he was 16, and he went there for 2 weeks, and they loved him.
Yeah, right.
They just said, Jesus, we'd take him tomorrow, right? But the only problem was he didn't have a license.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because he was 16. So they said, we can't take him on until, he's got a license.
Yeah.
So those sort of 16, 17, 18, obviously, I suppose adolescence and
those years,
wrong crowd maybe and things like that. And at the end of the day, it was a choice that he made, and that's, the hard part, I guess, for the families that someone chooses to go down that path of dependency on something that we all know is not great, So, he went down that path. And, of course, I had the girlfriend at the time and I was sort of torn between what do you do for your brother, where does it become a limit? Because, he was stealing from us and, it was very tough on the family sort of thing. Dad took the brunt of it, probably thankfully, because I guess at, sort of 17, 18, going through VCE, trying to, departmentalize everything and break everything down was pretty horrendous. And, and then when I was doing TAFE and stuff, because I was trying to sort of educate myself to better the business because the business was struggling. And, I had a girlfriend and so I had all these other external forces and she was, supportive as much as she could be in the situation that I was in. But the nucleus became, obviously Dane had to try and help himself because no one could stop unless it was him. And he went to numerous rehabs and, he was in, when I say jail, he got locked up in Tumbarumba, which is, if anyone wants to know where that is, it's about halfway between Melbourne and Sydney.
Okay.
And it was just a low density. I mean, really, it was like a farm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was no, for people there were no harm or anything. It was just because they, he stole a VCR. Yeah. So it was just it was one of those things. He was up in Sydney for a bit at rehab, walked out of the rehab, and So it was very tough on the family, and so that made it very tough, I suppose, in terms of relationship wise. To try and give everyone enough of everything. And obviously, Mum and Dad, there's a lot of turmoil there for a while. Of course, after he passed and stuff like that, it was, I'm not going to say the blame game, but, could have, should have, would have, all those doubtful things. I mean, firstborn, son.
How old was he when he died?
He was 20, I think he was about 22, 23.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. So, too young.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your folks would be, well, we could have done this and we should have done
that.
Well,
like everything, Joe, you doubt yourself. You doubt.
One's to blame.
Well, you doubt what you did.
Yeah. Where did we go wrong kind of thing.
Yeah, and you sort of go, well, we didn't see that coming. You would have thought he would have got better. And we got him into, we had a friend at the time, he was very big in Rotary and he got him into, I'm trying to think the name of it, I think it's Booth or something in Sydney. It was like one of the places for rehab and stuff. So he got all the best care possible. And unfortunately, it's the choice that you make. And, I remember him sort of saying he said to Dad once, he said, I just love it. So, we were able to sit around and watch him fade away.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That was pretty hard.
Oh. Yeah, Karl.
It made it very difficult, I suppose. And in my 20s, I did the trip overseas and I just had to, it was the only 6 weeks I've ever had off in my life.
Yeah, so much going on though.
Yeah, so I hightailed it out of there after everything's sort of settled. I spent 7 weeks in Europe, had an absolute ball, ran naked along the beach.
Hold on.
Yeah, not something that everyone else probably wanted to see, but
Oh, well.
Fuck it, I did it.
Turn the other way.
Yeah, I did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had my own Euro trip sort of moments, and I got blottoed on a ferry once, and I woke up nearly 2 days later. And I don't really drink, so there you go.
Yeah, so that's
probably reasons why I don't.
I do know that about you, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I vented at my 20s, and then my 30s obviously I had, Karl, serious relationship, and stuff like that. And then that ended, I was about 37, 38, and I've probably floundered a little bit since then, I suppose. Tried numerous things, or tried to I had someone there for a little bit, Sally, sort of on and off and that, and I maybe mutually we probably should have done something a bit different there and made more of it than probably what it was. So that's probably a bit unfortunate for both, but such is life.
It's hard, I guess, at that point is.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is though now, Jade, you get into your 40s, 50s and stuff like that, and you meet people. I have this sort of mindset, and it's not it's not 100% correct, but it's pretty much narrows down the issues that not only I have, but also the opposite sex has at this age. And that is, there's two types, right? And I always say there's two types. There's two types of girls, there's two types of guys, right? And I'm talking about people that are 45 plus, There's two guys. One guy, probably me, had a go, tried to have a go, tried to do the right thing, for whatever reason doesn't quite work out, not for the want of trying, not for being understanding, not for trying to be, I'm not saying I'm a saint, obviously I've got things that are probably not great with me. I'm pretty routine, and OCD, but the thing is like you have these standards on yourself and you try and apply, as I said earlier, you try and apply them on other people when they fail for whatever reason, and the failure, it's not, and I shouldn't use the word failure because it's not right, but they fail in your eyes because you have this standard. And I'm not saying, again, that I'm Jesus or anything, but I'm not a religious person, but I like to live by the 10 Commandments. At Haileybury, they sort of, back in, kindergarten and stuff, it was always that sort of shit. And I think if you think about it, if you take religion out of it, it's like the 10 rules of life. It's not a bad rule, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's not really anything you could argue with.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, your neighbour might be hot, but you don't have to go over there and tap it, Like, you might want to, or maybe wait for their divorce and then you can do it. Maybe there's a time and a place for everything, wishful thinking or whatever it is that gets you by. But I think I've tried to live my life as best as I can, by that, and I suppose I get now to this stage in my life where, I like to share something with someone who matters, because it's good fun sharing things. I mean, I look at you and I go, how lucky are you to have someone like Adam?
Yeah.
Poor bastard.
It's a tough life.
Yeah. I've seen the whip marks, people. I've seen the whip marks.
The shaking.
But I mean, you look at people like that who have, I mean, my parents are 54 years married.
Yeah.
And yes, they've had torment, they've had everything in their life. And that is life. Exactly right.
Ups and downs.
I understand yours.
Yeah.
And you sort of sit there and go, wow, we all like to think we're going to have an easy life, but what is an easy life?
Yes.
What is normal?
Yes,
and all these things that we probably question at times. Good to lean on friends, good to have good friends, important. Wish I had some.
Shout out to...
Yeah, shout out to half the podcast. I like to, So you get that. So you got me who's trying to be, I think, legit, ethics, and all those sort of things. I don't want someone 24/7, and I think we've all got a life, Now, I understand that, if I meet someone, they're probably going to have kids.
Yeah.
Probably older kids, but they're going to have kids. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a job, or they're going to have, a friend network. I'm not trying to take that off of them. I embrace it. Good. It's healthy.
Yeah.
As I do, with some of mine. But I like to think that there's a mutual thing. I always say I don't want someone 24/7, but I wouldn't mind a little bit of the 7.
Yeah.
Like just maybe a bit of the day, of someone's day, like sort of thing where it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever happens from there, sort of thing. And so that's my philosophy of that side of a bloke. The flip side of the bloke is, the yin and yang side, and he's the arsehole, right? And unfortunately, he makes up 85% of what's out there, and that's probably from what I've spoken to people, that's probably about it. Yes. And the problem with him is he's had the marriage, he's had the kids, he's had the divorce, he's had the bitterness of the bitch got half or whatever, right? He now thinks he's 21 again, right? And he's going to go out there and plough the field and and party on and be the knob that he was when he was 21.
Yeah, that's right.
And all the rest of it. And so he spends the next 10 years, so the same years as me, being a dickhead.
Yeah.
So
but that's not what.
So all the ladies' guard goes up and goes, oh, here comes another tosser, here comes another tosser, and that's what happens. Yeah. So then for me to break through their barrier, it gets even harder again.
Yeah.
Because here is the legit guy that just wants a bit of the 7. Yes. I'm not going to control you. I don't want to. I'm not your puppet master.
Cutting with the same brush.
Yeah, sort of thing, right? Mm. So unfortunately for us 15%ers, it's really difficult to break through that cycle.
Mm.
Now, the only time that changes is when you get into your mid to late 50s, right? Because the guy's, either partied out or realises boring by himself because most of the girls have ever rejected him and his mates look at him and go, mate, you're a tool. What are you doing? Right. Because they're all still married or whatever.
Yeah.
Or have gone through that side of their life to look like an idiot, Back in I remember my parents always talking about it as it was a midlife crisis.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe that's the modern day midlife crisis.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Be a dickhead again, sort of type thing. And so you get that side of it, which makes it so much more difficult. Now, that guy's only going to calm down when he gets into his mid to late 50s because guess what? Yeah. He now wants, not necessarily the wife, but he wants the carer, the taker, the washer, the cleaner, the dryer. He wants all that shit again, right, that he did have with the first wife and that he pissed down the drain because he was horny or some shit or did tap the receptionist and now he's paying for it. And you will pay for it because you'll find it hard to find someone who, at that stage of life's going to mar up.
Cop it.
Because on the flip side of that, you then got the two Sheilas, right? Mm. One, you've got the one who has had the divorce, right? And I'll say it now, hats off to the females in that 45 plus bracket range. And I am just generalising ages, of course, but, whatever.
Roughly.
Where they do have the divorce and stuff because they're left with the kids.
Mm.
And they do so much, from what I've seen and, whatever, they do so much for the kids, and you hope that they appreciate it when they get older, of course. But they do so much for them and they prioritise the kids and what's that family structure now without, the fathers, being in the same house. And you just sit there and just go, it's amazing. Like it really is. A woman's resolve is far better than a man's, in general, I feel, right? And I definitely will tip hats off.
Yes.
Right? Now, this could be my awkward, social shit skills, but I always had hats off, how they do it, how they can just prioritise, shut out and just, regroup, build, a family structure for their kids and stuff. And whether the father participates or not is another story. And most of them seem to be very, spasmodic at it, which is a shame because that was the choice they made too, to have kids.
That's right. And
I always sort of look at it and go, well, that shows, I suppose, someone's true colours. So if they do participate in their kid's life, I mean, sure, they didn't work out with the wife or whatever, then I will give them a bit more credit. But usually when they don't, you just sort of sit there and go, well, you're just a loss.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. That's harsh. But anyway, so you get that woman. And then on the flip side of that, you get the woman who has rebuilt their life, who has moved on, who has, a job, success, whatever it is that matters to her, a group of friends. And now they're sort of thinking, well, what can complement my life? And then again comes back to that a little bit of the 7, right? And that's very hard to break down because their perception is for the player, the guy who's trendy, whatever it is, trying to be Mr. Modern or whatever because he doesn't have the wife and that, and he's all show and no go.
Yeah.
There's no substance. It's just show. And once they go out on a date or two, they realise, oh shit, it's another one. Right? And trust me, they're out there because I hear stories like no tomorrow. Yeah. She says, I've got a book on it. But that's what you sort of get stuck with. And then we come to the discarding life where people now, rightly or wrongly, that you are discarded. You don't look right. You don't do this. You don't do that. They're looking for Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect never existed. And that's the reality that they've got to face and accept people for what they can bring and what they can share and what they can do. I'll admit I'm no hunk of a guy or whatever it is. I've never been. I've never had women like throwing themselves at me. And by all means, they can. I'll happily catch. I'll happily actually catch the nice ones. I just think that and again, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect, but we all know what we like, and we all know what we don't like.
Yeah.
And as you get older, that window gets narrow. It gets smaller and narrower.
True.
And no matter how many times you try and sort of reset and change the mindset, you got to stick to your values and what is acceptable and what's not. So I suppose that's I was never married and never had kids, and I'm probably okay with it. Yeah. I'm not saying that I would never get married. If I did meet the right person and whatever it got to that stage, then so be it. I'm not saying that I'm not adverse to it. Yeah. But I don't necessarily think that you have to have it neither. I mean, just spending quality time with someone that matters to you the most. Yeah. Is the most enjoyable thing. I think. Absolutely. And I get that with family, but I guess the reality is family doesn't last forever. Like as you know, and you never know. So it would be nice to have someone to fill the gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not from the want of trying or looking. I am still looking.
For those ladies out there.
For those ladies out there that would like to go for a bite to eat or.
That's right. Oh well, I'm your best sales rep.
Yeah, I know. You stick up for me. I do appreciate it.
Try.
It is amazing sometimes. Like sometimes it does take 2.5 years, but. You never know, Jodes. You never know what's around the corner.
You do not.
No, usually another corner, but but you never know you never know what's around the corner. I always try and keep my mind open to anything. I'm more of a why not than a why. Yes. Try not to ask too many questions, and if something ticks the boxes or something sounds like something worth going, then why not? Yeah, so absolutely. I don't think numbers, age, or anything like that sort of like is a reason to not. Obviously there has to be something there, sort of thing. And I would be wrong if I said, oh no, I really want someone who's Claudia Schiffer or something, because or as a good mate keeps on sending to me, Lavinia Nixon. I do keep on telling him that he keeps on sending married chicks, and I'm just like. I'm not a home breaker, right. But if she does want to trade, I'm not going to say she's trading up, but if she does want to trade in, I said I'm happy to look at the credentials.
Lavinia Nixon.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we're all human, and I think sometimes we need to let go of a few things and try and embrace more.
Well, moving on to work and profession. Mm-hmm. So you said what was your first job?
So my first job was a paper round.
Was your paper round?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I used to get on the pushy on a Wednesday night.
Yes.
And I used to go around and deliver the Moorabbin Standard.
Yes.
I used to deliver half of them into letterboxes and half of them into the bin at the.
You did not.
Half of them in the bin at one of the local parks. And I was smart about it too, Jodes. I like to think I was smart about it too, because I used to think outside the square, and I used to deliver. For 1 week, I'd deliver that round, and then the next week, I'd deliver the other round.
My gosh, I'm shocked.
So they wouldn't complain to the Moorabbin Standard because 2 weeks in a row that they never got a paper. It was just like, maybe this week they didn't do one, or maybe this week.
I can't believe that. What?
I didn't do it all the time, Jodes. It was only when it was pissing down rain. The man's got to know his limitations.
That is very true. So now, what is your profession or job now? So how did you move into what you're doing now? So you went to TAFE.
So I guess my first job was I was a paperboy.
Yeah.
And I suppose in the meantime of that, I did that walking around doing people's cars and mowing and stuff to generate money. I lived a simple life back then, Jodes, at 13. It was the sarsaparilla and the 9 holes, or even maybe 18 holes at Moorabbin Golf Course, or even if I really felt adventurous, I go to Sandringham Golf Course. That was a bit further ride, but so I did that, and then obviously with the family business.
Yeah. Was there an expectation to work in it? Because it's always that thing when there's a family business that that it's expected that you're just going to work in it.
You know, the weird part is that my grandpa never wanted my dad to go into the family business.
Oh, there you go.
And so my dad's first job was actually with the opposition.
Yeah, right.
Of my dad, which is weird.
Yeah.
You know, sort of thing. But then obviously Grandpa had a cerebral hemorrhage, and therefore Dad had to go to work there and keep the business going. So different circumstances, but he probably would have eventually got there anyway. Yeah. I suppose with me, I mean, I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
I would love to be an airline pilot.
Oh.
But then I realised you had to be smart. You know, and when I say smart, I mean maths. And, you know, apart from times tables, I'm screwed. You know, sort of thing. When you got to do square root of something or other to work out how many freaking litres of fuel goes into whatever. I was like, just fill it up, mate. Just fill it up.
That's right.
When it's coming out the side, it's full. That's it. We're ready to go. You know.
So did you know anyone that was pilot, or you had an interest in planes, aviation?
I used to go, because obviously my dad used to go to Hong Kong every January for a buying trip, and you'd go for like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Which, you know, to a kid, you know, in his like 6, 7, 8 years of age, it's a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so Mum used to take us out to the airport, and we used to, you know, watch him land. And back then they had real planes like jumbos, you know. He used to fly in with Cathay, and Dad used to always sit on the side of the plane that he knew would come into the terminal.
Yes.
And so he'd be there with a flap going up and down with the window.
Yes.
So we knew, you know, that he was on there and all the rest of it. So Mum used to drag us out there. We used to, in the back then they had an observation tower. You used to be able to stand at the front there, smell all that A1 jet fuel, all that good shit, you know.
That's a good smell.
Yeah. Oh, bloody oath.
I love that
Where's
smell.
the aftershave of it? That and WD-40. Where is it?
That reminds me of just being at the airport.
Yeah, I almost would buy a diesel car just when you fill it up, because it's semi-kero. No, you can't. I don't think they do outside. No.
I'm going there.
Yeah. So we used to do that.
Thing.
And of course, I used to watch the planes and stuff, and I like anything mechanical. And I used to think, how good would that be? You know, because I love the idea of travel and different cultures, experiences, people, whatever. And weirdly enough, for someone who probably was more introvert as a kid, like, you know, I had friends, but that was about it, you know, and the social retard. And therefore, to be able to do the flip side of that and travel and meet people and network with people and stuff like that, which is probably my alter ego, would have been to do the exact opposite of probably how I was when I was a kid.
Yes.
You know, and which was weird. And, I just sort of thought, how cool would that be as a job to travel the world, experience stuff, you know, fly a plane, you know, look at the sunrises, look at the sunsets, you know, all that sort of stuff. I thought would be brilliant, you know, watch the stars at night, you know, at 38,000 feet.
Yeah, sweet.
You know, I do it when I fly. I look out the window and go, wow, how cool is this? Yeah, amazing technology and whatever. And so I suppose that was that side of it. That was probably the mindset of it. And back then too, flying was pretty taboo. It wasn't something that, you know, we all did.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and I sort of thought that was pretty awesome. So that was probably one of the first jobs I ever remember saying, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And the other one was a marine biologist. Now I know you've had someone else on here that said the same thing, and I just said,
did someone copy someone there? Or?
Yeah, well, and the reason why I thought marine biology was because back in the day I used to ride jet skis, and, you know, we had a place down at Rye and used to always be around the water and things like that, and I love history. Yes. And I just sort of thought, how cool would it be to work in water for your job? Yeah. You know, looking at stuff, you know, and dribbling shit about it, you know, like, yeah, the coral reef's cool, you know, like it's, you know, and you know, I'm a bit of a nature sort of lover. I'm not going to go hug a tree, but I like all animals, you know, everything has its place, you know, I eat meat, you know, whatever. I'm pretty average Joe, but I appreciate a lot of things. And I sort of thought, how cool would that be as a job to be able to go out on boats all day, you know, be around water, you know, and of course it was a bit of a, you know, bit of a fool's look into, you know, how life would be, you know.
Actually, really
like, you know, I sort of thought I was on the set of Flipper, you know, like, how cool would this be? And people are probably saying, what the hell is Flipper? But you can,
some people, a lot of people would know.
Thank God for Google. So like, you know, I sort of thought that'd be pretty cool. But my mum, in her, you know, Germanic way, there's no jobs in that car.
She shut you down.
There's no jobs in that car. Where? You show me where there's a job advertised for a marine biologist. You show me where there's a job advertised. Oh well, there isn't, because all I've got is barmaids and whatever it is in the Moorabbin Standard for jobs, right? But yeah. So and probably rightfully so. It probably wouldn't have been as glamorous as what I probably had in my head. But at the time, I sort of thought that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so probably the pilot one was probably the one that sort of stuck with me more into the teens.
Yes.
Dad had a heart attack. I was in grade 4, and I remember it sort of shocked the family a fair bit. And I think that sort of brought reality back a little bit in terms of, well, if something was to happen to Dad, now I'm only in grade 4. If something was to happen to Dad, what happens next? Sort of thing, because the family sort of revolved around the family business.
Yeah.
As most,
absolutely.
as most people do in their family structure. And I mean, my mum wasn't afraid of work. I mean, my mum worked in the family business, but she also had another job. She worked 2 jobs, grew, 3 kids, and all the rest of it. Some people struggle to do with 1 kid and don't even have a job, and get paid to lie in bed. Another story. but like, I think that sort of raised maybe a bit of an issue, relying on the one sort of income and the one sort of structure of work. And so when I got sort of into my secondary schooling, so we used to, every year we used to have toy fair. So, which is actually starting this weekend in Melbourne, but we don't show it anymore. The toy fair used to be in Sydney, and so we used to go to Sydney. So I was only like, I think the earliest one I was probably 12, 13, which is way too young probably to do it. But I used to go up there, and because I was never allowed to miss any school, Josie. There was never any missing any school. I think for toy fair was the only time I got one day off, of not going to school. I mean, literally, I'd be 3/4 dead with the dengue fever and God knows what else, and Mum would still send me to school.
Still go.
So we would go to toy fair, and we'd set up the stand and all the rest of it. And because we had sales guys, we had sales reps or whatever, and staff. Some of the staff used to come up with us, and you'd have a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, what 13-year-old kid doesn't enjoy going to King's Cross at night? Jesus, and I'm talking the real King's Cross people, not today's fancy ass whatever it is,
Oh, bit of an eye opener.
Oh, the stuff you see, Jesus Christ! Playing pokies at 14 years of age in the Sydney Leagues Club, pulling out $300 winnings and stuff. I mean, $300. Do you got any idea how much that stuff that bought?
Yes.
I was set for 6 months, and that was living the high life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like, like it was an eye opener. But I survived. It didn't hurt anyone. All the rest of it, and saw some shit that you sort of go, probably still scars me, but that's okay. But yeah, like and I suppose that's where it started. And then we did bus tours, coming through the business. So on the weekends, on the sad days, you'd have these organised bus groups.
The shopping tours.
Yeah, shopping tours. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
gotcha.
So we haven't come through our place. And so we'll be frantic in there restocking, because they literally they'd buy a lot.
Clear it out.
Yeah, clear it out. So sometimes you couldn't throw it in faster than they could take it out.
Yeah.
Some ladies would even fight over stuff, believe it or not.
Calm down.
Pretty much. Jesus. So we did that. So that was like a sad day. It was like full on from 6 o'clock in the morning till probably 6 o'clock at night. You just didn't stop. Like it was full on. And that sort of kept the business going, through that transition phase. And so I suppose, and our accountant at the time, because I actually read the letter, our accountant at the time did a letter to Dad saying that I should not go into the family business under no circumstances. Karl should not go in there. Karl should, be his own man and not have an easy ride into the family business and all this sort of stuff. Oh. So our accountant actually wrote the letter to Dad. Dad actually kept it. I think it was only recently that I pissed on it and then burnt it. Look, I mean, everyone's got an opinion, and would have I been better off doing my own thing? Who knows? But Joes, I always say to people, I don't have grandeurs. I mean, I enjoy nice things, as we all do.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to have a Taj Mahal house.
Yeah.
I don't have to have fancy stuff. I have 8 Kathmandu jumpers, all of various colours, and everyone who knows me knows that I can't go past the winter sale because it's $50 for a Kathmandu jumper, and Karl's just going to change his colours every now and then. And that's me pretty much to tell you. I'm probably simplistic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say thrifty because that's not true. I do blow money on useless stuff. But I always say if I can work, I can feed everyone, pay the bills, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
If there's anything extra, well, then cool.
Yeah.
You know, save it for a rainy day or you know, have a better Christmas party. You know, you know, like we're a very open and giving family.
Yeah.
Like, so I think for people who really know us, they know that we are dependable on anything. You know, if we can do it, if we get asked, we're there. You know, I've carried a mate's dad's coffin out of a church and all that sort of stuff because, you know, you do it. You know, you stump up. Our family's always been like that, sometimes to our detriment. Some people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's life. But, you know, we're not going to change who we are because someone else's mindset's and that. So, yeah, you know.
So in terms of your career in the business, what are you most proud of in your career with the business? Because you do a lot of travel.
Yeah, I probably don't travel as much as I used to. It's a bit harder now because we deal with major retailers as well as the smaller retailers.
Okay.
So we have a delivery window. So like say Big W, they place an order on Thursday. Every Thursday they place an order, a replenishment order. We have to deliver it by the following Friday.
Okay.
Right, which is not difficult to do, but I have to do the order every Thursday. Like in terms of it has to be processed because Perth has to go. Perth is obviously a long way away.
Okay.
And so therefore it has to go pretty much that day or the day after. So it has to have the weekend to travel, which then gets delivered on time. So for me, I've got a window of about 9 days without pushing the envelope to go away, do something if I wanted to go on a holiday or something. And pretty similar with business too, in terms of a business trip, which is fine because these days you can do it, since COVID, you can do everything, you know, Teams or
online
or whatever online. So it sort of alleviates it a little bit. So since we changed the business plan to what we've got now, where we actually now do our own branding and our own product and stuff, and a lot of our own product development and packaging and stuff, you know, and only just recently did I have a customer who actually acknowledged how and actually appreciated what we actually do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is rewarding because not many people think of it that way. So some people think of you just as another supplier. Right, and Joe's, I mean, obviously, you know, our business has been around for 110 odd years. Yeah, we've seen people come and go.
Yes.
Right, people do come and go.
Yeah.
Businesses come and go.
Yeah,
businesses reinvent.
Yeah.
You know, people struggle, whatever, don't adapt, you know. And I'm not saying I'm the world's best at it, but we've now put ourselves in a position, and probably more so now, in that for our market, which is only small, we offer so much for the customer that appreciates it, who wants to engage in it. Yeah. Right. We're a one-stop shop for anything that's radio controlled, from a $20 retail through to a $200 retail. We can go further if we need to, but you know, we cover everything. We do our own packaging, family packaging. Everything on the shelf looks the same in terms of what they call family packaging. So, you know, and that cross sells. Yeah. Right. See, whereas some retailers will grab this line from, you know, so and so and grab this line from so and so, and then their shelf looks like a dog's breakfast, right? And then the consumer gets lost. Yeah, you have 3 seconds. You have 3 seconds with the consumer standing in front of a product for them to sort of, you know, catch their eye, read something that made sense, or whatever it is, right? Or they move on. Now, if you have a wall of it, you know, going anywhere from $20 to say $100, that consumer is like a rabbit in a headlight, you know, and all of a sudden they get involved in it. Yeah, they do. And we can do that with our products now, you know, and that's not what many people can do in our range, especially for the quantities, because we are a small market. Yeah. You know, but we have 30 years experience in radio controlled, and we can tailor everything to our market. Speeds, suspensions. We are more off-road based than on-road based. Europeans more on-road based than off-road based. Okay. You know, so not a lot of other people's product ranges work with us, and they wonder why. Yeah. So we adapt ours that suits our market. We name stuff instead of, you know, Chinglish, which is just doesn't make sense, right? We name our stuff, you know, the Bandit or you know, all these things that kids want to, you know, they want to get involved in, you know, the Viper, you know, and all these sort of things, and So, we do a lot of work on that front, which makes it easier for the shop sellers.
Absolutely.
Because it walks off the shelf. I mean, and so, I had a customer, from Dubbo, and really nice bloke, but, hard to deal with, but he's a good bloke and he's very upfront. And he just said, Karl, he goes, what you're doing is amazing, really. He said, because, and he doesn't buy all of it. And he just goes, because there's no one that does what you do.
Yeah.
Right? There is no one in Australia that can do what you do, and stuff like that. So I take it as a compliment.
That's so good at Australian business too.
Yeah, and we got that on all our packaging. It says on there 100% Australian business. It's all on our packaging. We're very proud of that fact. We were dealing a little bit with New Zealand, so that probably pissed them off.
Okay.
So I don't know. I suppose reinventing, revolving, and it's risky, sort of stuff, I mean, our house is on the line, sort of thing, right. And I'm very thankful for my parents for, giving me those abilities, because I don't have a house of my own, sort of thing. So, a lot of things internally, like, whatever is what it is.
Yeah.
But we make it work and everyone sort of benefits from it. It was always the reason why I didn't want my sister to go into the business. Now, I know that she still to this day begrudgingly, kicks and screams about it. There is no place for her, and I don't want to say that as just being rude, but the business is very much orientated towards minimal. Everything is minimal, like in terms of we don't have any other staff.
Yeah.
So my mum's 78, my dad's 78. Dad does the invoicing. Mum helps me out in the warehouse, and I do all the sales and things like that. I don't draw a wage like everyone else has a wage. Every now and then I might get something to obviously help with living and whatever. But we run it as a business to run our life, our lifestyle. And I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't need grandeurs and stuff. If I want to do something, usually I can do it. So I'll do it. But that's the way it works. So I've tried to instill on my sister to be independent, which hasn't always worked, unfortunately. But that's, I think, is more important because I have seen the risks and I have seen, we have lost a house because of the business and things like that. Mum and dad made probably the ultimate sacrifice in terms of selling their family home, and we had to regroup and things like that. And that was amongst the same thing with, what's happening with my brother and all these sort of things. So if you could have so many things coming so many different ways.
Yeah.
So I'm just proud that I suppose, I have my parents behind me, but we've been able to adapt and we've been able to think outside the square, or we've backed ourselves in times where it has been very difficult to do so and made sacrifices to do it to hopefully, the betterment of what we do.
Yeah.
And I'm not finished because the next step is to take it internationally. Because what we do is rare and there's been a few companies overseas that have since changed even recently. So I have got some people that are interested in maybe how can we adapt it to start selling in different markets, which is exciting, but it's, I'm not getting too excited about it because it's a lot of work because I've got enough work to do what I've got to do now, but it's something, as I said, I'm a why not rather than a why. Yeah, that's exactly. Awesome.
That's so good.
Give it a crack, Jodes.
Give it a crack. That's exactly right. So now we're going to chat about your passions and interests. So tell me about your favourite music and bands.
Well, see, I'm not like you. I wish I was. I'm not great with crowds.
Yeah.
All right. And this is, I've been asked every now and then to go to, concerts and stuff. And I'll happily go to a U2 concert because,
yes, I was going to say,
I've certainly seen enough of them. I don't know what it is with some of the music just resonates with me. Yes. I think I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It seems to be my anthem. But, when they lower me into the ground, they'd probably play that. We won't be looking too far now. But
so what was your first concert?
I knew you were going to ask this.
Oh yeah,
and I had to think back.
Oh yeah,
and you're going to flip your lid at this. And I know you like. And this is
Hold the Fort.
Yep.
Is it a boy band?
Oh. Rosebud, Foreshore.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And it was Don McLean.
Okay.
Now, I know everyone's going, who's that? the song American Pie.
Oh, yes.
Right? So, yeah, My American Pie.
Yes.
So he was on holidays, right, down in Rosebud, Rye area, whatever. This is back in the early 80s. And I think he must have been playing Melbourne or a festival or something, I don't know. And he was on holidays on the peninsula, and we were caravanning down there on the foreshore. And he loved it. He loved the way that people embraced him and left him to do what he, be a normal person.
Yeah.
Probably because most people didn't know who the fuck he was. And so he put on a free concert.
Wow.
Yeah, and at the time, so we were there with some our neighbours we used to go camping with and we grew up with and stuff. So they were down there with us, and we went to the concert. It was free, and and he played American Pie and stuff like that. And
that's so
and
cool.
I remember it like clear as day because it was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So it was him, and there was someone else.
Okay.
I'm sure if I Googled it, someone would have probably something of it. There was something else, but the night after that was Kids in the Kitchen.
Kids in the Kitchen.
Yeah.
Scott Kahn.
Yeah, so you could reel off these names. I would know them from a bar.
Kids in the Kitchen.
But they played the same venue, and I don't know if you know Rosebud Foreshore. They've got this little amphitheatre thing and a stage, which my brother rode his push bike off and broke his arm on.
Oh my god!
But they did a concert there, and it's got a fence around it
Kids
and stuff.
in the Kitchen.
Yeah, Kids in the Kitchen played
Love
there.
them.
I remember seeing that, but obviously I would have been 5 or 6. Joe's 12.
How old was I? High school.
Yeah, second boyfriend.
Jeez, take it easy.
I don't know. Chip off the old block like your dad. Jeez. Bloody hell. He would have been 2 in a week.
Oh, my gosh, my dad. Where'd he go with that?
So I reckon that was probably one of the first concerts and stuff. I was a little bit out of the era, whether it be appreciated or not. I was a little bit out of the era where bands probably played as much as they do now or did then. So, like, I remember in the 80s, man, I would have loved to have seen In Excess and
it wasn't really concerts weren't really a thing.
No, it was more like late 80s, early 90s where the bigger concerts sort of came. I mean, I know you had probably your festival halls and stuff like that, but I mean, we were never going to go there or anything, I mean, from where we are. But, it was always those sort of things. And then, obviously Live Aid on TV and those sort of things. And you sort of think, that would be cool, And so I suppose from a concert point of view, I've never really been one of those persons that got to go see people.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Guns N' Roses when they came out, recently.
Yeah.
But I was so apprehensive because I was a massive Guns N' Roses fan, and you know how to say you shouldn't meet your heroes. And I just sort of thought, if I go see Guns N' Roses, I'm the same with Chili Peppers.
Okay, yeah.
And I just sort of thought, because I know my sister's seen Chili Peppers, a while ago, and she said they're okay, sort of thing. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that if I go and see a band that I've, got up in high esteem,
and
that they're shit.
And go, oh.
Yeah, and I go, oh, really? You're crap. Or whatever. Now, I know probably musically they wouldn't be, but like everything, we're all getting older.
Yeah.
So the sound's different, the voices are different.
Yeah.
Obviously we can't all sing like Axl Rose all the time and whatever. And apparently he's pretty crap. Like, I mean, apparently he doesn't sound as good as, and I'm talking Jodes, it's got to be original. Again, 100% zero.
I can definitely say Def Leppard were exactly the same. They were perfect.
And that awesome. I wouldn't have a problem with. It was
really impressive.
Yeah, and that I wouldn't have a problem with. So I'm not a band geek, like I've got to go sort of type thing. I appreciate music. I do like a good song or a good tune and all those sort of type of things. If you told me something from modern day, I would have no idea. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't. Not only do I not have kids, but being socially retarded, I live in the 90s, sort of thing. And
some people live in the 80s, some people live in the 70s.
Some live in the 80s, 90s, whatever. I'm not going to discriminate between the two. Both of them have their goods and whatever. But I'm in my car or whatever, I've got digital radio. It's on the 90s.
Yes.
I just love 90s music. I think, the different bandwidths, the different genres, the different tastes and whatever, and the experimental or whatever, which would have been the same in the 70s with like punk rock and things like that. But just, different, maybe not so much electronica, but like anything from, Fatboy Slim to, Chili Peppers to, Guns N' Roses all the way through U2, back to, even John Bon Jovi, throw one of them in there,
Yes.
and I'll listen to anything pretty much, I don't discriminate really. Even on the way up here was 9-Inch Nails was on, and Rage Against the Machine,
Yes.
and I was like, sweet, crank that sucker, sort of thing, yeah.
And then you've got our other friend who his level of that is let your ears bleed kind of thing.
I'm going to go root your goat sort of, I sort of can't do that real heavy stuff.
Yeah.
I like to be able to hear what he's saying as well as, as everything else. So, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit there, but I appreciate good music, like, without a doubt, and whether it's a one-hit wonder or whether it's, a great album or whatever, and I think that's probably more to it, I think, is if the artist is enduring. If you can listen to it now and still say, what,
absolutely.
That's good.
There's so much, I reckon, I don't know if every generation says the same thing, is when there'll never be music like there was, that's still current, even the other day, Abby was listening to Soft Cell, Tainted Love, like that's a very old song.
That's
but
very
it's
pub,
still
very pub song. Every pub was playing that.
For a 17-year-old to be listening to that as so. Yeah, I think.
But I kind of get to the stage, Jodes, where and probably some of the bands you have seen as well are in this sort of group. They play instruments.
Yes, for sure.
Which means that you have a level of talent. Really, because I don't know about you, but I've tried to play guitar and I am shit. Right, and things like that. So I appreciate the fact that there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 people up there that can put stuff together that actually sounds really good. And they have a talent, they have a gift. I appreciate good music and I appreciate talent.
Yes.
I mean, not the last U2 concert I went to, but the one before that, they had Jay-Z as the support act.
Yes.
And there was a 2 Americans sitting in front of us. And they said that they were there to see Jay-Z. They couldn't give a shit about you too.
Okay.
Right? And I just said, well, that's good to see you got no taste. That's all right. I'll accept that. And they said to see Jay-Z in America and that is you got no chance. There's always sold out, because they don't play in massive arenas because, who listens to that shit?
Yes,
but,
yes.
So whatever. So they had him on there. And apart from the song New York.
Yes.
The rest of it was rubbish.
Yeah,
it was like
I agree. We saw it too. Yeah.
You could go out to the skip and just bang the lids on the skips, and it was sounding roughly what he was sounding like, and then just yell.
That's the one song I was waiting for.
Yeah, so was I. Yeah, Alicia Keys and stuff like that.
Of course.
Yeah, I was waiting for her to come out. I was like, come on, give me something. Like,
not just him.
Yeah. I'm
absolutely.
I'm not a doctor, but I'll take a look at anything.
So, thinking about your favourite movies, TV shows, actors.
My dad's a big movie buff.
Yes.
And I used to stay up pretty late at night, when I was at school time.
Yeah.
And we used to watch movies. The key was to get make Dad an ice cream sundae. All right? Yeah, Joe. Now I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag of every kid out there that wants to sort of stay up late. But back in my day, we had these glasses.
Oh yeah.
And they actually were from Macca's. Back in the day. It was, again, back when they did quality.
Yes.
And that used to be the ice cream. So, in other words, you knew what size you had to make.
Yeah, right.
So, I'll be up there making, I'll get the Neapolitan, get all the flavours in there, get the syrup in there, maybe chop up a banana even if I really wanted to stay up late. And anyway, we had these big long spoons. So, I'd make one for him, make one for me, right? So, I'd walk in, so he'd hear, we had these sliding concertina doors, right, which went into like the family room. And so my old man was a night owl. He's like me. And so he would have those doors shut and he'd be watching movies and stuff with the old VCR with the cord that ran back to the remote, sort of thing. Because we had version 2 which had the remote. Because Dad, once the remote came out, that was it. If I can get to that, we're getting that puppy. So he can go. So we had a video store in Mentone that we used to always go to, and so we just put the VHS in and on comes the movie. And because back in those days, kiddies, TV used to turn off at midnight.
That's right.
And come back on at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
Thunderbirds was the first show on, and I was there ready for it.
It absolutely was.
Yeah, and so so I'd make him a Sunday, and then that was it. I was allowed to stay up. Yeah. Used to stay up watching Formula One.
Oh yes.
And all those sort of type of things with him. So, look, my movie taste could be anything really. I was never a massive Western fan.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Although I do appreciate now, the good, the good, bad, and the ugly, and all those sort of like classics and stuff. I can appreciate it, and I don't mind watching it. But James Bond, fan, especially the. I'll say the good versions, the Eon versions before they went. I like Daniel Craig, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
But the last Bond movie was rubbish in my book.
Okay.
I thought it was terrible. And if you're a Bond fan, I think everyone would probably say the same thing. Because I think they've left it in the wilderness, hence they've sold it off to Amazon.
Yes.
So now I'm very worried about what comes next, whether it's for me or not. I like action adventure movies, like National Treasure.
Yes.
Those things. Why don't they make more of that shit? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
I just love that sort of mindset of adventure and stuff. And in a movie, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like Indiana Jones? Yeah, sure.
Best.
Maybe the newer ones got a little bit sidetracked, but just a great show.
Yeah.
Like, great idea.
Yeah.
And movies like The Great Race. Now everyone's going to go, what the hell is that? I think it was made. It was Blake's movie. So the same guy that did Pink Panther and The Party. There's another good movie with Peter Sellers. It was the tale of good versus evil, black and white. Wile E. Coyote, whatever you want to put it down to, slapstick comedy. It's a great movie, and Dad and we quote so much from it, and I could watch. I don't know how many times I've seen it.
Yeah,
it's a big movie. It's a long movie.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant, and that's from the late 60s, and Blake Edwards directed it. Same guy did Pink Panther movies, again, just stupid funny, like John Candy movies, apart from having a real life mate who is John Candy. It's like they're movies that are
so brilliant.
They're just movies you can watch,
like
National Lampoons. And I know everyone always says Lampoons. They're just movies you can watch, Why don't they just make movies you can watch, Lethal Weapon movies, fun movies, like I'm too old
They've
for this
lost their
shit.
way.
Yeah, it's too, I mean, you can jam ram Marvel shows and comic stuff. I'm not interested in fanciful crap, it is. It's just, it's rubbish movies. And look, I know it's special effects. I know it's got all that stuff in it, but it does nothing for me. I don't see that as real life, And everyone can relate to a movie like Lampoons. Who didn't do the car drive across the country to like how we did to Noosa with the caravan or whatever,
that's right.
to Wally World, and but our world was Dream World, which is really piss weak world. But back in the day, we thought that was woo,
the best.
the
best.
So. All those sort of movies that you can watch and whatever. I don't mind a good drama or a good rom-com, Love Actually and stuff. I can put my hand up and admit that I really like that show. I just love it. I just think it's. I like it because it's such a snippet of life, and every one of them, every one of the stories in that, everyone can relate to because either they've been in it, or they've got friends that are in it, or whatever in that sort of part of their life. I think that's such a clever show.
It's best. It's so good.
Such a clever show.
And now it's getting on.
Oh, but it doesn't age because it's the same thing. It's the same things that we all relate back to.
It doesn't change. It's few and far between.
Yeah, and the more they try and go over the top with it, the worse the movie becomes. You idolize. You then, I mean, like The Meg. I mean, I wasted 2 hours of my life.
I don't think I haven't seen.
Actually, Joe, do you know what?
Have I?
I'm going to admit this on live, whatever this is. Rick the Scale.
Jodes FM.
Jodes FM, 106.7. I've watched The Meg, I think, 1.5 times.
Oh, okay.
All right. One of them was with a recent lady friend.
Uh-huh.
And I watched half of it because I just had to tune myself out. I think I was thinking up, what am I going to do tomorrow in the warehouse? It was that enthralling of a movie. Yeah, you would have. You would have. It's shit. So I've seen it like 1.5 times, and I was just being social with the other half time, and it is rubbish. But how can you get Jason Statham to make such a crap movie?
I know. I love Jason.
Yeah, I know exactly. Put him in like best. I suppose Transporter was good.
Italian Job.
Yeah, Italian Job and that. Yeah, put him in all that stuff. Great. Awesome. Untouchables or whatever it is. That's right, isn't it? That's the movie. Untouchables. Incredible. One with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, yes.
Where there's Expendables.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, even that over the top, but that's all right. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, no one can say no to Chuck Norris. Jesus. Even his mum was afraid of him when he was born.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, like, all those sort of movies. The original Steven Seagal movies before he went off the plantation. Jackie Chan movies.
Yeah.
Where's it in? I like a mixture of movies. I'll happily watch anything. I'm really not into, arty-farty, like,
art house kind of stuff.
Yeah, like boring sort of stuff.
Mainstream.
I miss the late night SBS movies, the real ones, the good ones, and those people who know.
Are they even still on now? I don't know.
No, they're not. Those people,
not.
ever since the ABC took it over, it's crap. So those people that know,
quality's gone down.
Yeah. So the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the 3 movies that are in that. Now, I can't remember the names of all of them, but the real ones, the Danish one or whatever it was, that was brilliant.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of thing. I thought that was an awesome movie
Cultured.
series. Yeah, it's very cultured.
So cultured.
So, that's me.
That's how you're right.
Oh, in space. In space. Yeah, I got bootloads of
gosh.
it. Yeah, I love culture.
Well, my next section is family and friendships. And so your friendships, I've known your group of friends for quite a while. Describe your friendships and how valuable they are to you.
Yeah, I've got a
and
big...
you all met at the same time.
I'm not saying that I've got a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I've got friends that I went to school with, and then obviously how that's grown from there. Because obviously, the octopus arms spread out because, they've got some friends and you end up mutually meeting them at a barbecue or something or other. Then all of a sudden they realise, we can have those together. They're not going to bitch and fight and talk about, which political party they're going for this week or whatever. So I think that's one side of it. And and then I've got probably friends that I grew up with in terms of like early life and obviously, went to school. Like Dane went to school with one of them, and the family just sort of really close together and stuff like that. So if anyone's been to our Christmas party, they probably would have met most of them.
It's an annual thing.
It is an annual thing. Yeah.
How many years is it? When was the first one?
First one was my 30th.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, that's where it started. So it's been 17 years. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, apart from I think we missed one in COVID. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where it started. I thought they'd been going for years.
Yeah, so 17 years. The actual Christmas party. Yeah. So it started as my 30th, and I'm not a person that wants to be centre of attention, sort of type thing. Believe it or not, people. Again, socially retarded. So I usually will put my foot in it more often than not, and believe it or not, I have my filter on now. Like you would not believe, my brain is cooking,
sweating.
You could bake eggs on my head because I am trying to filter everything before it gets to my mouth. And the people that are listening to this that know me know that I'm dead serious. Because
totally.
Jodes FM 106.7 might get taken off the air.
Sorry, we can say anything on the podcast.
No, that's right.
It's all good.
So I kind of the friends that I went to school with, and obviously they got married, kids, and things like that, is one side of it, which is. Sort of like the ones that I sort of hang around with. I play golf every week with a guy I went to school with. And every now and then we have what we call ladies' night. So we'll get together and we'll just go out for tea, or we might play golf first and then go out for tea, and, they'll bitch about their ladies and I'll just sit there and go, suckers, trapped. No.
All in jest.
Yeah, all in jest, of course. That's why, yeah. Yeah, that's another story. But so we do that every now and then, and I think that's good in this day and age, Joes, as we probably have skirted the issues with mental health.
Yeah,
we all went through, and I don't like going back talking about it, but we all went through, especially in Victoria, in Australia. If people are international, we can Google it. Victoria was Fort Knox, and we had a dictator that really, well, for 2 years fucked us over.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And I think some people obviously had different ways of dealing with it. They had family, they had, obviously their own wife, whatever, to deal with it. And I think a lot of other people were really struggling mentally with how to come to grips with not being able to do what they can do or should do or want to do and things like that. So we used to have a online thing, I can't remember the name of the app, but it was made during COVID. And so the four of us, so the four mates, we would all get on it on a Friday night, and would talk for however long we wanted to talk and vent and whatever. So I think since then, it might have been happening maybe a little bit before COVID, but I think since then, as life pressures age, some people pass away, parents, maybe some things at work don't work out how you want it to, I'll just say life pressures. I don't like excuses because I don't do excuses. But maybe life pressures, build up, and people need that way of venting it. We can all stand out the backyard and Serenity Now, scream at, at the train going past like, Cedric.
Big Steal. Yeah, Big Steal. Best movie ever.
Love it. Claudia Carvin. Oh, God, I'd love to have a coffee with her. I don't even drink coffee, but I just think I just reckon she'd be such a cool person.
Such an awesome movie.
But anyway, that's another fantasy. But I think more so now, it's so important to actually think of someone else.
Yeah.
In a world where people don't. And I don't want to be going negative, but with the social side of it, and with like internet dating, whatever it is, so easily to be discarded, so easily to do the cuts hurt. Well, you'd be lying if you said that they don't.
Yeah.
Because what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Or why can't someone talk to me, or whatever it is, right? And so I now try and go out of my way. If someone wants to vent, someone wants to talk, I'll happily listen.
Yeah.
I do come with the caveat though.
He laughed.
Yeah, I do come with a caveat, and the caveat is, and I'm pretty serious on it, is don't ask me a question you don't want to know the answer to.
Oh yeah.
All right. And I know we all sort of like think, someone's not going to say the truth, or someone's not going to do whatever. I will say the truth. And I don't say it because I get joy out of it, especially if it's not a good one.
Yeah.
Right, sort of thing. I get no joy out of it. But because I'm not a vindictive person. But I can't sit there and tell someone bullshit because it's either going to make them – they need to deal with the facts.
Yeah.
And if they're asking the question, then they've got to be prepared for that, And I know that probably sounds harsh, but I think it's better for them because it's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But actually having someone recognise it and just independently say, hey, yeah, it's not going to be like what you think it is, or it's not like this or whatever. And again, I don't want to sound like a smart ass. I'm always predominantly right. Now that comes with a disclaimer because not everyone is always right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, sometimes I am.
Yeah.
And I don't always like to. If someone asks me the question, I don't always like to give the answer, but I will because that's what they're talking about.
Of course.
And I will say that be careful. Because it might hurt. It might be what you don't want to hear.
Yeah, that's right.
Sort of thing. And believe it or not, if anyone's ever come to me with stuff and I've given them, the straight up, black and white, this is why. And I'm not saying I'm an expert. I got no certificate on the wall. Maybe that's what I should have done. Counsellor or something. I probably would have been pretty good at it. But I do warn them that, take it for what you will. Do it with the information what you do. You're seeking something.
Yeah, that's right.
And therefore this is the answer. And works out to being always right. Whether it be someone cheating on someone, whether it be someone, whatever it is. Stating the obvious or whatever. It's just a clarity for them whether they want to accept it or not. But eventually they do because it comes true. Yeah. So I guess in that sort of regard. So I have my school friends. And get along well, and through those school friends I've met you, obviously, and Adam and stuff like that, which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
He
winks.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I like genuine people.
Yeah.
I have heaps of time for genuine people.
Yeah.
I don't have time for tossers, dickheads, or time wasters. If someone shits me, I'll just go, yeah, cool, no worries, and that's it. You'll never see me again. Sort of type thing. And that's not ghosting. That's just I don't have time for I don't want to waste my time with people that don't appreciate spending quality time together.
Yeah.
As I said, socially I don't take my phone with me.
Yeah.
I don't do social media. The only thing I've got social media wise is Instagram.
Yep.
Because I converse with a guy in the UK about cars and stuff, which I find interesting, and that was the easiest way to do it. I don't really post shit on there. I don't even know how to do it.
No.
And the odd time I get a recommendation, do you want to be this person's friend? And I go, who the hell is it? And usually they're in Titswana or some shit. And I'm like, no thanks. I don't need your ruples today. But so that side of my friends, and I like to try and think. I like to think that I've got friends for life. We all have our stages of life, and that. And I know that if I really needed to, I can ring anyone of my friend circle and drop of a hat, I've got whatever it is, support that I needed, and vice versa. I mean, my phone's never off; it's always on 7 days a week. Someone can contact me, and I don't know, I'll do whatever I can, you know. So I think that's important. I think that's a true friend. Yeah, I think a true friend too, Jodes, is you can turn up and see them, because I don't do social media. And you can chat like as if the chat was yesterday, and you can just continue on. Yeah. And I think that's important because that shows the effort that you put into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with it. But then I have family friends that obviously I grew up with and stuff, and I do different stuff with them. So we usually share birthdays. We all go out to dinner with their birthdays and their kids' birthdays, and they come over for Christmas Day. So we sort of have an extended family sort of type situation, and. I do the pork belly, so-and-so's wife brings the ham, and, it's just one of those sort of things, and we all get along well. We've all grown up together, and, so there's that sort of side of the family as well. And that's probably really about it. As I said, I don't have a lot of friends. Working for yourself is very difficult to have an avenue of – I mean, I've got work colleagues, but I wouldn't – I mean, again, I'd do probably anything for them, but it's just not – it's not the same.
It's different.
And, so my networking chances are a bit more narrow.
Yes, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. My next segment is life's turning points. Can you share a significant turning point or moment of realisation in your life? You've mentioned like the passing of your brother, and that being, even though it's some time ago, it's still quite a significant turning point for your whole family as well.
Yeah,
and everyone would have processed it differently.
Yeah, of course. Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think adversity in your life, or whatever level, that could be stubbing your toe through to, a death of a relative, family, whatever. I think you can take it two ways, and again, it comes back to your personality. I think you can either accept it, learn from it, acknowledge it, sort of type thing. I mean, I always acknowledge his birthday, the day that he died, in terms of my brother, but you also, in the way that I process it in that adversity, is he made a choice, right? An incorrect one, right? In any normal person's eyes, but for whatever reason, that was the path that his life chose. He chose for his life. And I always wonder what it would be like now. You know? Actually, funnily enough, I've actually used it recently for a positive, which is, it was one of those sort of like shed light, sort of moments sort of thing, and you sort of like, oh, I can actually use this information, So I went to my cousin's wedding last November in Adelaide. She finally got married to a partner, and Mum and Dad were away, and I sort of thought I'll make the effort. I'll go over for the wedding, and I couldn't really spend much time away. That was Cup weekend, so I went over there, and then I came back till the next day. And anyway, so my cousins, I got three cousins, sorry, but two of them they're twins.
Okay,
all right, and they're polar opposites. Like, I mean, they are so opposite. My cousin Damien, he goes, I'm the good egg, and cousin Russell, he's the bad egg.
No.
All right.
Oh.
And they've had a bit of a falling out. Damien's the sort of the happy-go-lucky tradie. She'll be right, talk to anyone, do anything. And Russell is the introvert, socially awkward sort of type bloke, right? Yeah. Married as well. Both of them have got kids, but they just don't get along, can't be in the same room, all that sort of stuff, which is such a shame, Such
a shame.
Now, I know people are different, right? Jodes, you and I know, right? Yep. We can sit here and say, we're all different. Yeah. And that's what's exciting about life,
Yeah.
Fuck, imagine going out with the same person. Imagine going out with yourself. You can have stuff in, you can be on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
But imagine being exactly the same as yourself. Jesus. Yeah. Pretty scary and boring. But anyway, so they're two very, very different people. And my auntie really struggles with it, right? Because she's, my mum's side of things came from, obviously war-torn, and stuff like that. I mean, my auntie was born here, but mum came from a camp in Germany. She was born in a displacement camp. And so, like, their sense of family is so remote, sort of type thing, but yet needs to be, nurtured and treasured. And so my auntie really struggles with the fact that her two boys just can't, whatever it is, just can't get along. And I knew it had been like it for a long time. And I sort of thought, when I was over there, I sort of thought, do I get involved? Do I say something? Is it my place? Sort of thing. Because I'm not really one to sort of, butt in and, whatever, unless I can see someone doing something really stupid. But then I can sit back and laugh. But when it's sort of serious stuff like this, I thought, no, maybe I should just. So anyway, I pulled Russell aside. I was over at his place before the wedding, and I had a moment with just the two of us, and I just said to him, I said, look, Russ, I said, I don't know what it is with your brother, right, and all what's going on, and why you can't sort of just agree to disagree or accept people, accept that you're different. Now, I know they've grown up in each other's shadows. Damo was always the sporty one and whatever else is, and Russ was always the socially sort of maybe awkward one. So I get it that there's a big difference between the two. But I just said to him, I said, mate, I wish I could talk to my brother every day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Carlos.
I just said, you can't.
Yeah.
I said, yours is just there.
People don't understand it. So how old are they both?
So they're probably they're younger than Laura. So they'll be 42.
Okay, yeah.
40, so they're old enough.
So they've not been speaking for...
Oh, they've, like...
On and off.
For a long time. Yeah, probably, it'll be years. They'll put up with each other, but they'll stand, on the opposite side of the room, not acknowledge each other, sort of type thing. So it was apparently pretty bad.
That's such a shame.
Yeah, it was apparently pretty bad. And... they've got kids at a similar age and stuff, and because Russ is so introverted, it'll be good for his kids to coerce with, with his kids,
Cousins.
and the cousins.
Yeah, of course.
And they get along fine when they're together,
Okay.
the kids and that, because they meet up with, nanny or whatever. They all get along fine. So I just sort of thought maybe this is one of those moments where they're old enough, at a wedding, all the sort of things where you can put things together and maybe have a bit of a moment where you can actually think about the external rather than the internal, And so I said it to Russ, and he goes, all right. He goes, yeah, I get you. I just said, mate, you do with the information what you choose, all right? I said, but let me tell you, it ain't that easy, you know.
That's right.
Whatever. So he was pretty he was pretty receptive to it, and I didn't say anything to cousin Damien at the wedding and stuff, sort of thing. I sort of thought I'd because Russ was the one that was the socially awkward one, and he was the one that probably needed to maybe work on being a little bit a bit more, I don't know, open to just relax a bit, mate, And so I didn't say anything to him because cousin Damo comes over for the Christmas party, and he was helping me with doing the yard out the back, and we got the new fire pit and stuff. So we gave it a test run because he's a firebug like me. We gave it a test run, and and we're just sitting out there, just the two of us. And I said, Damo, I want to say something. I said, now it's none of my business, right? Because Damo could be a little bit hot-headed, But we respect each other. And I just said to him, I said, look, I can't talk to my brother. You can talk to yours every day. Yeah. I said, make of it what you will. And I just sort of said it to him, and I just said, look, mate, I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I said, and I get it that you guys are so different, and they really are polar different. And so anyway, so I just said, look, man, I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I said, you're a big boy, you got kids, whatever. But I said, they play well together. They were really good at the wedding. I said, it'd be a shame that if more of that can't happen as they get older. Yeah. Because they're like around the 10, 12 to 8-year-old range, like Xavier's sort of age. So it'd be a shame that they don't sort of coerce, And I knew that at 8, Auntie Selma were up. Christmas Day comes, and of course they got Christmas Day over in Adelaide and stuff like that. Okay. And Auntie Selma, she flicked a text to me and just said, thanks.
Oh, Carlos.
All right. And I just sort of thought, yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Merry Christmas. And
do with it what you will,
Merry Christmas and yeah, whatever, And I did tell her what I'd said, like when I said it at the wedding. And she just goes, I said, look, I'm not going to get involved. But I said, just maybe highlighted a few things, blah, blah. Anyway, so I got a thanks, for Christmas Day sort of type thing. I thought, oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, so it's no good. Anyway, Mum and Dad went and visited them in end of January, early February. And they had a massive get-together.
Oh, so good.
On the Sunday. and all of them turned up.
So good.
All the kids turned up. They shook hands, and they actually sort of conversed as best as they will at this stage, and whatever happens.
Early days, yeah.
And Mum just said, Auntie Selma just said to Mum, just so happy.
Oh, so unbelievable.
So that's maybe one of the life experiences.
Love that.
Travel. I mean, who doesn't like travel? You know, immerse yourself in someone else's culture, food, way of life, whatever it is. I mean, I always find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. I guess you have moments of clarity. As I said, we're a pretty giving family, but when someone sort of goes against that grain, you sort of draw a line, sort of type thing. So awareness, I'm not a person who has my guard up, like as I said, I came here, you could ask me any question you wanted to know and you'd get it.
Yeah.
There are still a few family secrets there that I won't let out, but I like to think that I'm pretty open and honest with people. As I said, it comes back to those 10 commandments sort of type things, just live your life as, how someone wants to treat you, and if someone wants to treat you that badly, then they're not people that need to have in your life.
That's right.
So
end of section. Yeah, totally. I love that bringing the cousins together.
What will it ever be? I don't know, but at least it's something.
Good start.
And at least my auntie can see that there's, something, sort of thing, rather than, because she used to, hope the boys don't listen to this, but, she used to be times when my mum used to tell me that, Auntie used to, cry at night and, because the boys wouldn't.
So stressful.
Yeah, boys wouldn't see eye to eye or whatever it is, And as I said, when you have a family on mum's side that is so sort of disintegrated from war, my uncle, pretty much climbed his way out of Ukraine, and my grandpa, pretty much climbed his way out of Ukraine over to Germany, survived so many near misses, in his life, married a German lady, from the farm that was shone upon, and her 3 brothers and family literally disowned her. Mum was born in a displacement camp. They spent 3 years in a displacement camp in Germany. Now, if anyone has any idea, I don't know if anyone's travelled or whatever, but if you could imagine what it's like in a war-torn, like Gaza or whatever, but in modern day, Germany or whatever, that's completely obliterated. There was nothing. They relied on, I think it was at the time, the British, I've got to remember the card. I think it was the British Army that was responsible for that camp.
Okay.
And they had to then obviously feed the people that were in there. So all that airlifting and stuff like that, because there was no shops, nothing. There was nothing left. So to come from nothing, and migrate out, and like many Australians did in the time, and in the 50s and 60s, the Greeks and the Italians, and we should be so appreciative that they have, and on the flip side of that, as much as we have too much immigration now, for a lot of other reasons, not because we want more people, but because of infrastructure and government, and things like that, for different reasons that it is an issue. We should embrace it because it brings so much positive to our country.
Absolutely.
when done correctly. We are all Australian,
no,
so
of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's why I'm glad that I think family is important. Good, bad. You can't. You can choose your friends. You can't choose your family. So in our family, friends are family.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Because if you're not on that level, you're not a friend. You're a fuckwit. So you can go.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
My next segment is called Curious Corner, where we ask random questions about, I guess. Can you recall a time where you just couldn't stop laughing about something?
Well, that happens most gatherings, doesn't it, Joe?
Does it involve?
I think if I can, maybe because I've already maybe touched on the subject. This is probably going to paint me in not a very good light, but anyway, so be it. I can still own up to it. The last time I was at your place, Jodes, which was nearly 12 months ago. Time for a barbecue, Jodes.
It is. We've talked about it, yes.
We were out the back, and Adam he's an Apple expert, and I am not an expert with anything tech. But what do we do, Jokes? Is it shadowing, or what do they call it?
Mirroring.
Mirroring.
So,
okay, I knew it was something to do with
airplay.
Airplay. Yeah. So we put my telephone up onto the big screen.
Yes.
And we went through the dating app.
Yes, we were
and we went through the ones that were swiping on my profile because for all those, I live in the bush pretty much. I live in on acreage in the middle of nowhere. So the dating pool is very thin out my way.
Yeah, that's right. Because
I'm hearing
That's right.
I'm hearing suburbia.
The location,
and of course, the location all of a sudden means that supposedly some lovely females are interested in my profile. So we sat there for the night, commentating on those lovely ladies that took their time to swipe for 20 seconds or whatever
Giving advice
on my profile, and we're giving advice on each one, whether they were worth pursuing or whether it was straight kick it to the can.
Yes, lots of laughs.
So
lots of.
I suppose in moments like that,
all the kids were involved.
I tend to get worked up a little bit, and then my mind starts to ramble, and then things get dangerous. So I suppose, we all had a pretty good chuckle at that.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
it was a
pretty chuckle at that. But I don't know. Usually you have a good laugh when you do something dumb and stupid, or you hurt yourself, or whatever.
I've got that too.
I mean, we've all done that. I think you usually laugh better with a crowd.
Yeah, of course.
And even if it is at me, that's okay. I can take that. I can take that. Yeah.
My next one is, if you could have any superpower for a day, what would it be?
Fly'd be pretty good.
Yeah,
So I guess go anywhere you want.
Yeah, of course.
I suppose you could go invisible and really hear what people got to say about you. But that's okay.
Invisibility cloak.
That's okay. People usually tell me to my face. That's all right. I suppose really being unselfish, I'd have the healing thing and I'd try and heal the world.
Yeah.
Because Jesus, we probably need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
At this stage. I don't know. I struggle with the fact that, again, as I said, I'm not a religious person. I try and live by the 10 Commandments. That's about it. But those people who are religious, and good luck to them, they need what they need. I struggle to feel that there's a God when you see such young kids sick and dying and that. Now, I know that's nature and that's life. Yeah. So if that's nature and that's life, then that's what it is. It's nature, that's life. It's not because, God's had enough of you or whatever. I struggle with the idea that there is a God who rules over everything and has the power to heal things and fix things and whatever, but chooses not to because that's our test. Well, I've been fucking tested, and things like that. And I don't need someone who's going to supposedly be looking over me to see how far that test is going to be. So I struggle with that sort of fact. So I guess if I could do anything, it would be to try and help everyone, as best as I can. In like especially in illnesses and stuff like cancers and stuff. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever been in that position, but I mean, I've seen people die of cancer. I've actually been with them when they're dying and stuff like that. And I wish that on no one. Yeah, no one, horrific, no one at all. I'd rather that bus get me, or whatever, than have to go through something like that. Yeah. And I know it's going to touch all of us. I know we're all one of us is going to get something. Your luck's going to run out somewhere. Statistically, that's very true. If I probably had a superpower, I'd try and help as many people as I could.
My next one is name 5 people you would invite for dinner and why. So if you could collect a dinner table of people.
They usually have this on the dating profiles too. They usually have this.
Do they?
Yeah, they have one on there. Who would you invite? Who would you invite?
Stealing my question.
Yeah. It's not necessarily 5. I think it's who would you invite? Oh, well, I suppose my brother. Yeah. And I'd just say what the fuck.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, but good to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, probably maybe my grandpa.
Yep.
And I suppose to an extent I could say grandma as well.
Yeah.
Because although I knew him, like especially on mum's side,
yes.
Although I knew him and spent time with him and stuff, now that I'm older, I got a lot of things that I would like to ask him, war-wise and stuff and things like that, and obviously growing up in a completely different environment to what we know, Soviet rule and communism and whatever. I just think that would be, an interesting conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. It's a hard one because I don't really idolize too many people.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't. really have an idol. I mean, I guess I look up to my parents and respect and whatever, but I don't really have people that I sort of sit there, like I don't read books, so I'm I guess I could probably put maybe Michael Schumacher there because I would like to know what made him tick. He's just a machine and just the the way that he went about he's driving that because I like motorsport. I like Formula One.
Yes.
And I think it'd be an interesting conversation. Just I know the man is like on a different level, but it just would have been interesting. And apparently he's quite a character outside of motor racing, so that would be interesting. As for the other one, don't know.
That's all right.
Yeah,
some people can't get to the 5.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be someone sitting there going, "What about me?"
There is. No, it's okay. He'll have you.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, but then nah. I don't know.
If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why? Is it U2? Still haven't found what I'm looking for.
I bet you everyone who's listening to this who knows me will be going, it'll be a U2 song. It'll be a U2 song. And the weird part is I actually don't listen to much U2.
Yeah.
Yeah, really like I just like it, so if there was a song.
I struggled with this one.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. But I mean, Jodes, as you know, music brings up so many things.
Oh, yeah.
And good things and bad things, whatever, break up with girlfriends, whatever.
Yeah.
I suppose, I'll be philosophical, which is so not me.
Wait, what?
I'm gonna think deep here, at least 2 inches deep. It is a U2 song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is a U2 song. And it'll be one that the listeners know. So even though there's a lot I could say, I'd probably say Beautiful Day.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Because it's uplifting. Everyone deserves a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So why do we have it?
Yeah.
So
it's a good one.
I think something like that. But I mean, I could go back, back cataloguing to like somewhere really old U2, which a lot of people wouldn't even know, like, sort of Homecoming and stuff. And that song is, I mean, Beautiful Day would be the one I would select.
Yeah.
But there's a song called Sort of Homecoming on, I can't remember the name of the album. And every time I fly,
okay,
it's in my head.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's weird.
There you go.
And sometimes they have it in
What year is that from?
Oh, it's like 84, 85.
Yeah, right. Early days.
But it's really good. It's such a good song. You've got to crank it.
Yeah, right.
And it's not rocky or anything. It's just like a it's just melodic, I suppose, but it just gives you that everything is about like full circle. It feels like it's full circle, You go away, you come back.
Yeah.
You always come back. Is home always where your heart is? Is home always your home? I've always toyed with the idea, maybe when I'm older, do you live in Spain? Do you live somewhere else? I mean, Jesus, can you afford to live here? They're all another questions, but I don't know. You sort of get this thing where should you or would you live somewhere else, or is home always where you come from?
Yeah,
is it always you? You know. And I suppose some people can do it. And I'm not saying that I couldn't do it. I don't know, But you always have this in the back of the mind of your head. Could you go somewhere else, live somewhere else, be somewhere else, and not have that string pulling you back to downtown Down Street Mornington, or even if you want to go to Sandringham Hospital or whatever it is, does it still pull you back? Or is it something that you can let go of?
Yeah, so true.
Maybe some people can let go of things easier than others. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Don't know if I could do it.
Around. Oh, my next one. So what's
these are very deep, Joe.
They are. It's what I do.
Yeah, I know. I need a certificate for this.
Signature. You get a mark.
Certified nuts.
Signature dish to cook. You cook a lot.
I do cook. Yeah, I can cook. Yeah, I mean, what a catch is this bloke?
What a catch, ladies! Please get on board.
If only this was simulcast on.
The phone lines have just hit up here.
I dated that arsehole.
Next call.
I can cook a fair bit of stuff actually. As I said, I like to be independent, and I like to dabble. I'm not the world's best chef, but I do like to dabble, and I like to have a go. I do a really good pork belly.
Yes.
Steak on a barbecue or whatever. I don't mind doing that. Barbecue. We make pierogi, which is a Russian Polish dish.
Yes.
So like that's a good all group together. You know, if you ever need to put on some weight, people have some pierogi. That'll do it.
Is that the boiled dough?
Yeah, you boil it. You boil it, and then you stuff it with like anything.
Okay.
But you stuff it. We normally stuff it with potato, bacon, onion, whatever.
Oh yeah, nice.
And then you make the envelopes. You boil them, and then what you do, you fry them in butter, so they come out crispy. Oh, yeah, bloody good. Mum, I usually help Mum when we make stuff. So holopochi, which is like a cabbage roll. So it's like you mince and stuff inside a cabbage roll, and you steam them, and then you fry them in butter.
Yeah, right.
So you're good for your cardiologist. I do a good fried rice.
Yes.
Yeah, do a good fried rice. You know, Chinese, homemade Chinese sort of stuff. Been doing, well, not now because I'm on a diet, carbonara. Like, you know, a real carbonara, not cream-based, real carbonara.
Yeah.
With eggs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's not bad. So, yeah, I like to dabble a bit, you know. I'm not a massive pasta eater, but I don't mind it every now and then. So, like, you know, a nice pesto pasta with, prawns or chicken or something in it. Simple, but flavour and,
delicious.
You know, things like that. So, yeah, I can cook. And my Bailey's cheesecake, you know, you got to wash it down with that. Takes me 2 freaking days to make it, but Jesus, is it good. Or the chocolate log. That's always been a party favourite. How many times have I gone to places with the chocolate log?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the simple things.
Yeah.
But it's all about having a go.
Well, my next one is about injuries. I don't know if I know you haven't had any injuries as far as I've known you, as I've injured myself several times over the years. I'm curious about other people's injuries. Tell us about a time where you've accidentally injured yourself.
So from what I know of, I've never broken any bones.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I've jarred my left wrist twice.
Okay.
Actually, I've probably done it 3 times. To be honest with you, it's probably got a fracture in it still from a post-hole digger 10 years ago. When I was redoing Mum and Dad's yard, I hit a chunk of concrete in an old thing and literally ripped my arm off.
They are shocking.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to
They're shocking.
It's not as much fun as they look.
No.
And I'll be honest with you, that comes
and they flick.
That's what it did. And that pain comes and goes.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know.
You're pretty sure-footed, like no accident prone or anything?
No. I'm not too bad. So I jarred my wrist twice skateboarding back in the day when I was a youngster.
Yeah, right.
And I was never really any good at it, Jodes. So I decided that this isn't for me. You know,
hung up the skateboard.
Yeah, I just didn't have that. I got self-preservation a little bit, I suppose. You know, why jump out of a perfectly good plane? Yes. Those sort of things. So, yeah. So I've jarred my wrist twice skateboarding. I think I dislocated my toe in Nigel's pool. And I pushed it back in because my little toe was like that. And I was like, I better fix that. Jesus, that did. Do you reckon that didn't hurt? After the days later, that hurt.
Not too many things?
I've cut the top of my knuckle there with a knife, cutting a pumpkin off a stalk. When I was going like this with a knife, went straight off the top. Jeez. That was 3 stitches.
Ooh.
I've got a burn mark on my finger, which I burned on the grill last week. So just not thinking straight.
Jeez.
A bit silly. But I'm not really the most accident prone.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I've got a pretty high pain threshold too. So like if I damage myself, it's like, suck it up and get on with it sort of type mentality. Probably broken 4 bones or whatever, but nah, that's okay. Bang your head the odd time, but
yeah.
Nah.
Jeez, that's pretty good.
No.
That's a good innings.
Yeah, not too bad, yeah.
At the ripe age of 21.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, by my 30th, who knows, you know. I might get drunk and, break my nose or something, but,
Oh, my next one. Now, I reckon I know your answer to this, though.
You never know, Joes. I'm here to scare. A surprise.
Hall pass. So if you could just choose a...
Hall pass is a bit hard with me because I have free realm at the minute. So in other words...
Oh, the switchboard's lit up again.
Yeah. It's you, listener. That's my whole pass. George 106.7.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, tune in, people. Look, you lust after a lot of people, don't you, in your life? Yeah. only problem is with that is coming back to reality.
There's nothing realistic about this question.
Okay, I will say one thing. Don't worry, I'll give you one. I've been very lucky, in some ways. I mean, I am picky, right? Selective, picky, whatever you want to put it down to, and I think I'm allowed to be. I mean, we all have things we like and dislike.
Of course, it has to be standard.
That's right, yeah, and that's because you want to be in the relationship for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons, right?
Yes.
So the people that I have had relationships with have all been really decent people.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason it didn't work out, right? And I would never have had a hall pass with any of them. I was very happy with who I had, right? Very happy. And I wouldn't have swapped them for anyone. But if I could choose someone off the rack.
It's a hypothetical question.
Well, of course it is. I know that. But if I could choose someone off the rack, where do you start? Jesus. I mean, Jodes, I've been single for a while. If I just go back through the old wank, mate. Let's see. Look,
we're up to A. Yeah.
Anyone I like, again, I'm more personality based but looks also are good. But Lavinia Nixon, I just think she would have to be the most natural person on the weather TV. She did weather. I don't know what she does.
What is she saying?
I don't listen to a word. I try and listen. But all I hear is blah, 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 blah. What time are you coming over, Karl? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, Lavinia Nixon.
But someone like Lavinia Nixon, who just comes across as a natural person, that's someone that maybe someone local might know. I don't know, you've got, I don't really go too much into the Hollywood stuff because you don't know what's fake, what's real.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, going by people who have been interviewed and going by people who seem to be, genuine and stuff, I would say I'd like to meet Claudia Carvin one day and have a coffee. I mean, I know she's married and all the rest of it. I'm not interested in anything else.
Cool as.
But I just think she comes across as a decent human being, fun. Again, she's lived a different life with her upbringing and stuff. Her parents owned the pub thing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting. I think people like that are interesting.
Have you watched her series Bump?
No, I don't have fancy TV and stuff. I don't even have the internet, Joe. Living out the shed
Bump
life.
is very
Living out the shed
good.
life. I don't have anything
Bump
like that.
is very good.
But one day I'll get to it all. But then if you go internationally, what's that Sheila's name?
Amanda Peet? No.
Oh yeah, no, she's cool. She's cool. Yeah, like her. Again, personality.
Beckinsale.
No. As much as I really would like to like Kate Beckinsale,
she doesn't look the same as she.
Yeah, I'm just
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Yeah. Again, another person who I reckon would be great fun. Real Sandra Bullock would be great fun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Ferguson, the Sheila out of Mission Impossible, and she was also in June. Not that I'm into that stuff. I think I'm going to say Sarah Ferguson, but I'm not 100% certain if that's her real name.
I have to go.
Her first name. I know it's Ferguson, but she's in Mission Impossible But I've seen her interviewed and stuff, and I know she's happily married, 2 kids, whatever. But,
her.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Rebecca Ferguson.
Rebecca Ferguson, that's it. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
She's
everyone's Googling the wrong person.
Mission Impossible. Yes.
I just seen her interviewed, and I just reckon top chick.
Okay.
Top chick.
What's her nationality?
She's Norwegian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's an accent there.
Yeah, Norwegian. And I just reckon personality-wise, she's awesome. Happy to have a joke, happy to take the piss out of herself or other people. Who wouldn't want to subscribe to that?
So true.
And Jennifer Aniston, of course, we'll throw her in there because again,
Friends.
just comes across as being I love Friends.
Yes.
Yeah, even Courtney Cox.
Yes.
Just natural, come across as good natural people.
Yeah.
But luckily enough to be attractive and into me.
The package.
They just don't.
Them on the lawn.
They just don't know it yet.
Never met you.
Yeah, the telex is coming soon.
My next section is legacy and reflection. So, what are you proudest of in your life?
That's a hard one because I think if people were looking at a brochure, God help them. If people were looking at a brochure, and this is probably harsh, all right, and I probably am usually harsh on myself, I suppose, if I'm honest with myself. What's he really done?
Oh, Karl, seriously.
And this is the reason why it's taken to season 3 to be here.
What am I going to say?
is because I was sort of like, I don't want to sound boring, and I'm not fake, so I'm not going to sit here and yarn crap that doesn't even exist and whatever, because even I'd get bored of that. Touching on the subjects that we've gone through, and if you did like a snippet of it, you'd say, okay, never married, no kids.
But it's not everything though.
No, that's not everything. Yeah. But I'm just saying, as a brochure, you'd sort of say, what has he done? He lives in a shed.
Lives in a shed, radio.
All these things.
When you say shed, it's not a shed.
But all these things that I've got in my mind that I just sort of see, is the brochure as glossy as it not only someone else's, but is it as glossy as maybe I would have thought it would have been at 47? But then I'll probably look on the flip side of it and say, you know what, I survived.
Yeah.
I know some people who didn't make it this far.
Yeah, that's right.
I know some people who did get married and have kids and stuff like that, and it turned out not being, ideal for them, or the person wasn't for them, and the carnage that can bring. Yeah. And the last thing, probably the last thing that I ever want to do is hurt someone. Mm. When you're in I'm a dating sloth, right? and I admit this. I even say this to some one lady recently that I was on a couple of dates with, Kathleen. I just said, I am a dating sloth. You are literally going to have to hit me with a sledgehammer in terms of what the next steps are, because I don't want to hurt people.
Yes.
And if I feel that the person's not for me on that level, right, I'd rather be honest, and have that discussion up front before it gets to any serious stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because as soon as it gets to that serious stage and you realise for whatever reason this person's not for you, and probably hopefully she realises it too, it's not carnage. It doesn't hurt. When I broke up with my first girlfriend, it hurt a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously first girlfriend, she had a lot of experiences, whatever, and I probably didn't see it, didn't want it coming or whatever. And that hurt a lot. And I didn't ever want to inflict that on someone, especially if it was going to be just for my own gratification, like as I was saying, the 85% of the guys that just want to sleep around, have fun, whatever, and just ghost you or whatever. I couldn't do it. I don't want to do it. I mean, to me, that's a shitload of effort for a couple of minutes of fun. If you're not into the person, you can't be into the person. What's the point? I don't see the point of it. Yeah. And so, I suppose that's why I probably say that, the greatest achievement or whatever it is survival.
Yes.
I'm proud that, I suppose, work-wise, that, I've been able to evolve it as much as I can, with probably very little education apart from, doing a TAFE course on marketing. Yeah. I like to think that people can approach me and can be honest with me and vice versa. Yeah. And I don't know, I take I get a lot out of little things. Yeah. And even probably a lot of people who see me from the outside would go, bullshit. Right? You got to
oh, let's go.
You got a fancy car. You got a fancy car this week, and you had one last week. And
I like the simple things. Oh,
yeah.
What do you drive? Oh.
Yeah. Just don't ask about cars. Automotive.
Next question.
But I probably I get a lot out of simple things. Yeah. I probably don't get much out of the bigger things. Yeah. But I do have this problem, and I have discussed it with my auntie and mum, and to an extent my dad and that. And I don't know how to deal with this. This is probably one of the hardest things. I struggle to be satisfied.
Oh yeah.
With myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that worries me.
Yeah.
A lot. Because if I can't be satisfied with myself, how's someone going to find me satisfying?
Do you think?
And I know, Joe, you look at me on the outside and stuff like that, as everyone else does and whatever. And I totally get it. I'm a happy, jovial guy. Don't get me wrong. I guess you sort of get to some places in your life. Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of things that consume your life. You got Adam, you got kids, you got. Well, I can't say kids are adults now. Work, all these things that consume and stuff like that.
Yes.
I probably don't have quite as much as that. Like in terms of I've got friends, I've got network and got work, but I do have a downtime.
Yes.
And that downtime is when you sort of spend it with either family or by yourself. And that's either good or dangerous or reflective, or it's, a hindrance and things like that. And so I guess, I probably struggle with satisfaction of myself.
Yeah.
And therefore I wonder whether I can find things satisfying. And that's the thing that really scares me.
Yeah, right.
A lot.
Yeah.
And, it's something that no one can fix.
Yeah.
Everyone can say, oh, no, you're a good bloke, or, you're an asshole or whatever. I don't worry, I hear there are two things that are very, very soft in what I've been called. But, it's just, I guess that's one thing that I probably struggle with the most is satisfying myself,
I think from an outside perspective, I think being a tower of strength for your family, like that is
probably
huge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure of you. I mean, like obviously during COVID, because we all were caged up and we all had those sort of big times where we could sort of like, I guess people were just being open and honest. Yeah, I did have a conversation with mum and dad about things in their life and where they thought they'd see things and stuff like that. And one of Dad's, and I'm not going to say regret, but one of his things that, and it's not over, but one of the things that he brought up was, I would have liked to have seen you happy.
Jesus.
And you sort of think, but that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Because what is happiness?
Yeah.
They've been married 54 years. They travel together. They go out for coffees every morning together with each other.
Yeah.
They have these little things.
The day is still young. We have a switchboard.
No, exactly right. It's 106.7, Jones. I know the switchboard. I know the poor lady, in the back room is going to be going, fuck more.
I tell you,
you're going to be pimping him out.
Burning the wires.
Yeah, $50 a bloody date. He's the one going to get the free feeds this time rather than him paying it. I know there is. I know there's time and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm not putting a closed door. I know I jokingly say I'm retired. Whatever. But don't get me wrong. If Lavinia Nixon knocked on the door and goes, "Now it's your turn." Fucking Jesus. Hang on a second. Just let me grab the Pepsi.
Yeah, imagine that.
But I mean, like,
that's a hard thing to hear, though.
I don't give up. Of course it is. Yeah, but he
what do you mean?
But he doesn't mean it. I don't think he means it in a bad way. I think he means in what they've got. He hopes that we
in
have.
terms of a partner.
Yeah, like like to share those experiences and stuff. I mean, there's no point in me going on holiday. I'm going to go on a holiday by myself. Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah,
the experience is over with very quickly.
Yeah.
So those sort of things don't overly happen, which is fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with all that stuff, but hopefully eventually I do get to that stage. So I suppose probably that's the biggest thing is in my life is how can I, get to that next sort of level, I suppose. It'll come. It's a work in progress.
It is a work in progress. Yeah, it's absolutely. Work in progress. Is there anything in your life you regret?
Yeah, there's a few things.
Ooh.
Not some things you can't really do much about. I mean, like everything, when you take a retrospect look back, and you sort of, I wish I could have done more with my brother, but unfortunately, he had to help himself.
Yeah,
but that's not a cop out for me. Like in terms of, I wish I was at the age or the mentality or the part in my life where maybe I could have taken more time to not so much understand it because I did test it, but to try and maybe help in some way or, like again, like how I did with the cousins, to try and maybe enlighten something to help him. But I don't know, I think he was always just on the path of what he was going to do, and I suppose to an extent my sister is probably in a similar vein. I mean, if I look back, should have I married my first girlfriend and would we have lived happily ever after? I don't know. Sort of type thing. Was that my golden opportunity of, family, kids or whatever,
The package deal.
But it didn't happen at the time simply because for a reason, whether
sure.
that wasn't ready for me, whether, whatever.
I agree.
There's a lot of things. So, you can always, ipso facto,
course.
go back and sort of look at it. I don't know, regrets. Is there anything else with regrets? I don't think so because I really try, and this probably sounds really philosophical, which again isn't me. The social retard in me says that I've tried to do the right thing by everyone.
Yeah. And
it might not be the right thing by me.
Yeah, true.
Which is coming back to that thing before.
Yeah.
And that does happen a lot.
Yeah.
And so therefore I guess, retrospect, should have I've given so much time to other people instead of myself? But I can't change that because that's who I am.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I want to be. Yeah. So I wouldn't change it. So, no, you know what? I think I'm all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone's wired differently.
Yeah, of course. But that's, again, getting back to the thing that's exciting about life. Yeah. I mean, you want to date someone that brings the better stuff out of you and maybe fixes some of the not so good stuff. Because let's face it, that's a relationship is always a work in progress.
Yes.
It's always give and take. Remember, ladies? Give and take.
Oh, the switchboard. There it is again.
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
It's off the chops.
Because you're in the area.
Yeah, I'm glad you got on silent.
Oh, my God. Well, that brings me to the end of my questions. You can relax. It's done. And thank you so much.
Get back on the scotch.
C3. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. You, Mr. Who Doesn't Drink. As I say, I cannot wait to upload this bad boy. But thank you so much for joining me today, Karl.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Being open and transparent and honest, which is what you always are.
It's the only way to be, Jodes.
For sure.
Only way to be. Got to be real.
Thank you.
Keep it real.
See ya. Firstly, thank you to Karl for sharing his stories with us. His outlook on life is very positive, and the events that have occurred in his life have definitely shaped him as a person. His wholehearted dedication to not only the family business, but his unwavering support he gives to his family every day. The generosity of his time and effort that he gives others is just incredible. We cannot ignore his sense of humour, and I'm sure you have laughed along with me at his brilliant one-liners. As we always do, let's give a shout out to Karl's hall pass, Ms. Lavinia Nixon. Tune in to our next episode where we get to hear more lives worth telling. Don't forget to check out and follow us on your socials. And if you love what you hear, please rate and review us on your favourite podcast app. Of course, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us through the Facebook page or Instagram. If you or a friend or a family member would like to come on the show, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. And if you want to grab yourself some merch, jump onto Redbubble to check out our products. Thanks for listening to Lives Worth Telling. See you next time.